Thank you. We may have our seats. Hello once again and welcome to the first ever Gender in Manufacturing Forum that is happening today courtesy of Kenya Association of Manufacturers together with IDH. My name is Mona Hamisi Hamadi. I'm going to be your moderator for today alongside my colleague, co-host Sally Amutabi.
Good morning to all of you. Welcome once again to this year's first ever forum as my colleague and host. I'm your co-host today, Mona Hamisi. We all welcome you and looking forward to a very engaging session from everybody in here. So karibu sana.
Definitely, we are hoping for a very engaging and interactive session. And we know when we want to do something interactive, we have to make sure that we utilize our social media.
Oh,
maybe
yes.
Sally can tell us where are we going to do the social media thing?
So definitely the best place to actually push this agenda is actually on Twitter. And we have a hashtag we're using today, which is AGM Forum 2023. And of course, sustainable manufacturing is also another hashtag. Yeah, so feel free to tag at KAM_Kenya and also tag at IDH Trade. Those are the handles to actually tag on Twitter. So feel free, it's a digitalized world right now, global forum. Take that selfie, let the world know that you're actually participating in the first ever forum today right here at Movenpick Hotel.
Yeah, I know we are all from a long weekend and we are here today. Yesterday was Labor Day, today other things are happening, but we say things that matters to us definitely have to happen. That's why we are here to push the gender for women, the gender for women. We want to see how the women are going to fare in their different sectors. Sally, maybe when we can start by introducing, tell us more about this forum. What are we anticipating? What are we looking forward to this forum today?
Of course, we have the government, which is a key player. Without the government and putting in key policies, then we basically are just lagging behind in all that we are doing. So we're going to be having the government coming in, represented by the PS for MSc Development.
Definitely.
Madam Susan Mangemi will be in the house. Geoffrey Kaituko, also the PS for Labor and Social Protection, going to be in the house representing the government. And definitely we have a very powerful session in terms of panelists drawn from different sectors. I can see Irene Kimashia. She's a lady I went to school with.
Oh.
I want to applause for her and I'm happy to see her here. A few, I think years ahead, Irene, but I'm glad to see you making a difference, making sure that the gender voices, the female voices are actually heard. I can also see very key manufacturers in the house, Mwana Hamisi. Yes. And of course, you can clearly tell that we will have a very informative session just to see how companies, manufacturers, you and I, what exactly are you doing in your space to ensure that we achieve the gender parity or the gender agenda in your space, individually and as a company or organization.
Definitely. We are here to push the gender equality, gender parity, and all that is concerned with that. So allow me to introduce Kenya Association of Manufacturer Chief Executive, Mr. Anthony Mwangi, who's going to give us the opening remarks. Karibu sana. Can we have a round of applause for the CEO, please?
Karibu sana, Bwana Anthony.
Thank you. Today, I think because of, we are talking about gender, women welfare, the both MCs are ladies, and thank you for coming. So, good morning. I think we can do better than that. Can you hear me at the back?
Yes.
So, let me do it again. Good morning. That sounds better. Allow me to recognize a few people before we kick off. And our Women in Manufacturing Chair, Mary Ngecho, karibu sana. Our sponsor, our partner, IDH Kenya director, country director, Jenny, and the team. We have our guests who will be presenting later today. Lucy will be sharing a wonderful story, what she's doing with about 3,000 women. It's a story that we'll move a bit slightly back because we were expecting the two PSs to be here. Of course, we have the chair, Kenya Flower Council, representative from Embassy of Sweden. We have IFC represented, SOCO, IHRM, all of you, karibuni sana. So, as the MCs have said, this is the first ever event that really talks about how do we promote women and how do we mainstream women in this sector. But even as we talk about that, allow me to share a little story. When I was growing up, I think this industry was much more vibrant and women were much more engaged. I don't know whether it happens today, because I grew up seeing my mother doing the sweaters. You know, there was this old machine, I think they used to come from a company called Singer, and it was long, and all of the time she was just running the threads to make sweaters. So she used to get contracts from the local schools, and we as the children, because she used to do it after we go to sleep. Of course, she's juggling cows, chicken, farm, children, and then the business is done at night. So I think she got to a point where she was home by orders, and every time we go to school, the joke was, myself and my siblings, and some cheeky boys and primary school saying, Tony, in Swahili, wapi sweta yangu? So you have, where is my sweater? Because my mother gave your mother the order, but you have not seen the sweater. So that became a chorus. You have about 30 people asking you that every day. So we're one of the people who are discouraging her from that business. So it's good that you're talking about that. I wish she was here to know that there's an opportunity for that. So allow me to take you through a few slides. And these slides will basically look at the bigger opportunity in this sector and then see where is the opportunity for women. This is one of the sectors, even as we talk about the opportunity, I think globally 80% of this sector is dominated by women. But can we do better? Can they also go to the ownership, can also go to leadership? And I think this is the conversation that we're going to have today. So for many people who have interacted with CAM, of course, we are now 60 plus years, and we bring together value addition organizations, and we partner a lot with government to be able to drive policy advocacy. So on your left, I'm sure maybe on your right for some of you, you'll see the regions that we are operating in, Nyanza all the way to Coast region. And so we represent about 7 counties, and of course expanding to new ones as we develop the manufacturing base across 47 counties. And then on this other side, you'll see the sectors that we are represented in, and you'll realize that textile is one of the major sectors. All right. Of course, the first one, we look at the first one, you see food and beverage. That's about 50% of the output. All the way, number 13, you'll see is service and consultancy, though not a productive sector, but provides services to our members. All right. So what you're talking about today is textile, and this is actually one of the key priority areas for the government. Right. So we've done a lot of work with them to see then how do we dissect this sector to make sense from where we are to the next level. Because this is one of the sectors that can create millions of jobs, all right? So on 19th of October, last year, we met with the president, and we presented what we said. You want to create jobs, jobs, jobs. That was the agenda. We can demonstrate that indeed you can create those jobs. If you look at that graph that you've shown there, 2021, the contribution of manufacturing to GDP was 7.2%. Right? But what does that mean? That output, 7.2%, or 14 trillion budget, is about 1 trillion shillings. So it's not small. Sounds small, but it's not. Right? But the irony is that if you had to go back 10 years, back from 2021, that's 2011, the graph would look, so you're moving from kind of southwards to 2021, because 2011, the contribution was 11.16%. If you go further back, it was even higher. So it has been coming down. Doesn't mean that manufacturing itself is shrinking. No. It means other sectors are growing faster than manufacturing. The telco, the banking, the insurance, the retail, wholesale, they have grown faster in terms of contribution than manufacturing. Should it be that way? No. And that's why when we met with the president, we agreed that together ourselves, as the industry and government, will drive towards 20% by 2030. What does that 20% mean? First, from 307.2%, we, outside the public sector, manufacturing sector has the highest number of jobs at 336, thereabout. And once we go up to 20%, which is 3x growth, that goes to 1 million jobs. And we can even do more than 1 million jobs. The output, about 5 trillion shillings. So, of course, you know, if you look at 1 trillion today to 5 trillion, someone told me that I should not look at it from a linear progression math. It's more of econometrics, right? So that's why the multiplier effect. Is it possible to do this? Many people have said it's not. But Egyptians have been able to do that. The contribution of manufacturing in Egypt is 28%. In China is 30%. In other places is even, you know, higher. India, perhaps 16, others 20%. It is possible that we can be able to do that. Now, for us to achieve this, we came up with 4 pillars on how to dissect and how to approach this dream, which is a big dream. Let's go to the next slide, please. And that gave us 4 pillars. Number 1, we as a country need to be globally competitive. The sector that we are speaking about today is a global sector. It is extremely competitive. We are competing with the best in the world. The whole of, if you look at the totality of the market potential, it is neighborhood of $2.1 trillion. Okay? And some countries like China takes almost 50%. Bangladesh has a huge stake. We are perhaps the biggest in Africa, but you're barely scratching the surface. But for us to be able to compete with them, there are a lot of things that we need to fix. All right? Ease and cost of doing business, logistics, taxation, training, all those things need to be dealt with. We've done a lot of work on that space, and we've come up with 78 items that can take us to a different level. And that is a subject for conversation with the ministries, different ministries. Then once we are globally competitive, and this is not, is a journey, not really an event, then we can be able to drive exports. The chairman for Kenya Flower Council is here, and you can see that the focus on that sector, what it has done for the country. If you look at top 10 exports from the country, flowers, vegetables, leading, followed by tea. The third, and many of you may not know, it is the articles of apparels to the US market and Europe market, EU market, standing at $550 million. Okay, many people have thought it's coffee. Coffee is half. Coffee is at 26 billion. This is actually less than half. Apparels with only EPZ in Babadogo and Athi River doing almost 60 billion. We'll come to those numbers later. So export, export, export. With all those sectors, we have done what we're calling sectoral deep dives. With our members, now we are doing that with the government to see where are the opportunities. We'll show you some of the numbers that we have, but today we'll just look at the textile. So export is another pillar. SME development. This is one of the areas in this sector that is dominated by SMEs. But SMEs across are the engine of not only Kenyan economy or African economy, also in developed world, right? So we don't need to, it employs almost 86% to 90% of the people. This is where the growth will come from, MSMEs. And of course, we disaggregated agriculture because that is the mainstay of our economy, and we just wanted to have a special focus on this sector. This is huge, but we are not adding enough value to what we are doing. We've started that conversation, and perhaps we'll be able to share with you another time. So let us go to a bit of deep dive on textiles, okay, and apparel sector. Right, so this, you can call it the value chain. So we have the garment manufacturers, right? If you look at, and some of them operate across, if you look at Rivertex, for instance, they make from cotton to yarn, to fabric, to stitching, but there are also some of the organizations that are only in the stitching value chain, that is the EPZs. The others that are in joinery and all that. So all this falls under apparel sector, textile and apparel sector. But what is the opportunity, first starting with the local sector? Let's go to the next slide. A country with 50 million people, EAC 300 million people, and with number of manufacturers are there, that is textile mills. You can see the mills there, they are only 3 cotton-based. Many of them are in the synthetic side and 4 genus. But of particular interest for you to note is imports. We import fiber, yarn, fabric, second-hand clothes worth 85 billion shillings. If you deploy 85 billion into this country, you can see what it can do, right? For Mitumba alone, and we don't want to start that conversation because it's always political, many of them will tell you, once they receive a bill of Mutumba, 40 to 50% of it is waste. So you can say that out of 19 billion, maybe 9.5 billion goes to waste. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. In the local textile sector, and if we put our acts together, the numbers are telling us that we can create over 200,000 new jobs by 2030. If we now go and say farm to fashion, start with the farm all the way to fashion, right? Saving 40 billion of, if we can only reduce the imports by 50%. Can the people who sell mitumbas reduce that by 50% and sell 50% new clothes? can we be able to meet the price points of the clothes that are coming? Quality, right? If you look at EPZ today, they import almost 100% of the fabric that they use at EPZ. If we put our work together, we can increase our contribution to what they do by $300 million. Right? And you can see the employment numbers. You can see the SMEs that are in the sector. One of the things that you'll be hearing from Rajiv and Lucy today is that it is possible to build 1 million MSME companies owned by women to produce silk and other fabrics. Can it be done? Lucy is already doing alone 3,000. She will tell us the story. So if we come together, can we do 1 million? Yes, we can. Let's go to EPZ. I know there are many numbers I'm throwing at people, so you'll forgive me. Yeah, let's go to the next one. With only 29 companies in EPZ, the employment is 50,000 people today. All right? And this is what we call the last mile, the back end of the value chain. You know, stitch, export, stitch, export. This is what is now the third largest export from Kenya at $550 million. And we are biggest in Africa. But if you only look at the US market alone, it is 100 billion US. We are doing 540 million. It is a tiny drop in the ocean. Right? Can we do more? Yes. And you've done a lot of work here. And we said, let us look at the opportunity. Of course, we have many challenges. Let's forget about the challenges for the time being. Let's look at what is the potential of this sector into our economy. What can we export out there? This sector in Bangladesh, when you're talking about 50,000 people, employs 5 million people. When you're talking about our output, which is $540 million, Bangladesh is talking about 50 billion. We have duty-free access. We have quota-free access to these markets like the US. They don't have. But they're doing 50 billion. We're doing 500 million. Right? Let's go to the next one. So the aspirations from the deep dives that we've done with our members is that we can be able to drive that output from 500 million to 10 billion. And that's why we've been working closely with the Ministry of Industry and we call MITI to make sure that they deploy capital into Naivasha, into Dongokundu. There are people or organizations who want to come and invest in this. You will be shocked by some of the companies, the proposals. Socks, big time. Socks can employ 100,000 people. There are proposals for some companies setting up to do socks only, right, for export. One company employing 13,000 people. So the opportunity is there. If we fully integrate, again, farm to fashion, you can see what that can do to us. 2 billion, another extra 2 billion US dollars. You can see what the government will get from that multiply effect. 50,000 people today can grow to 300,000 people in the next 8 years. On this sector alone. Okay? So what do we need to do? Drive competitiveness, start growing cotton. And I think as we talk about sustainability, I think there's be a huge conversation that will happen now to move from synthetic fiber to natural fiber. And Sanjeev, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I was in a panel on Sunday at the Mo Ibrahim event that was happening. And Europe has already started talking about carbon neutral growth, carbon free, no, I don't think it's free, but zero net growth by 2050. So in the next few years, if you're not using clean energy, natural materials to do fabric, perhaps we'll not be able to access these markets. The good thing with Kenya is that we have started even with energy generation. It's already happening. So we just need now to go back to the farms. We used to grow cotton. We used to have all these things happening. We lost it at some point. We need to go back. And that's why we invited the PS MSME and the PS Labor. And we've had these conversations, with many government officials. And this has now become a priority for government. So we believe that this is going to happen. Okay? Grow the MSMEs. I will talk about, a million women. This is some of the things that will take us to that dream. So, what are we saying? The opportunity is there. The markets, if I look at all of you wearing very good clothes, we can actually develop ourselves 50 million people, everybody, or 300 million people only in East Africa, 7 billion people in the world. We have arable land, we have people to do the stitching, we have people to grow the cotton. Why are we not doing it? As KAM, we have taken this to catalyze this conversation. And of course, with partners like IDH, we grow, but also grow in a responsible manner. There are some economies that have grown very fast, but now they have to go back and correct the ills that happen along the way. The good thing is that we're starting those conversations, and we thank IDH for coming on board so that then we can chart the pathway together in a more responsible manner. So I don't want to, and I can see people are very quiet. I'm not sure whether boring statistics, but this is an area that we must focus on. And for all the partners who have come in, let us see how we can join hands to develop this space. It has huge opportunities. Thank you very much. I hope we'll have an opportunity to interact more and ask perhaps clarifications. But thank you for listening to me, and allow me to invite Jenny.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and to celebrate this first annual meeting on women in manufacturing. I also wanted to start with a small story about my journey. I'm Swedish by nationality, and I don't know, Sweden are a little bit known for its gender equal policies, etc., etc. But for me, it was an eye-opener when I, as a young student, was participating in a mentorship program, and some of the speakers that were invited were telling me about a Sweden that I didn't know. Growing up, daycare was there for everyone, school was there for everyone, but these women were talking about a different Sweden when being a professional woman was really hard, because where could you leave your child? Motherhood and being a professional didn't go together. So I came out of that mentorship program feeling very privileged that I was living in an age where I had all these opportunities. I could go to university. I could see a future where I could take on anything pretty much, and I could also be a mother. And I think that's a very key realization for me in my life, that we need to build societies where women can be professionals and mothers and partners and take where society can support them to take all these responsibilities and do it with great spirits in all areas. So I am proud to be working with IDH that also has this vision for women. We want to work with a goal to have gender equitable access to opportunities. We want men and women to have the same opportunities. We want men and women to have agency in decision making. And we want men and women to have control over economic and social resources. That is our North Star. And we want to work through industry partners, in agriculture, in manufacturing, with other partner organizations. And we want to do this with a broad spectrum of interventions. We want people to work in a gender intentional way, and we want to deepen and create gender transformation in some projects so that we can learn from each other. We believe that there are a number of things that we need to address to achieve this. We need to work on the very hard topic on gender-based violence. Everyone needs to feel safe when they go to work, when they are in their community. We need to work on realization of equitable pay, that everyone that is working should be paid equally. We need to work on a distribution of living income in households, that access to financial resources should be well distributed. We also need to work on gender equal multi-stakeholder coalitions. As IDH, we work a lot on getting industry together, and we should make sure that we don't have rooms with only men, or only women for that matter. We should make sure that we have a gender equal distribution. And a number of senior directors in IDH has signed a petition to not be on only men panels, for example. We are also looking to scale gender intentional and gender transformative business models, where gender is taken into account in how you do your business. How do you make sure that your services, your products, your work environment, etc., can cater both for men and women? Here in Kenya, we are currently working in the textile and manufacturing sector with two partners, of which Kenya Association of Manufacturers is one of them. We have named the program Sustainability for Competitiveness, because we believe, as Anthony has mentioned, that Kenya needs to set up its manufacturing industry in a sustainable way, both environmentally and socially. The sector needs to take that stance to be or become the sustainable sourcing destination for global manufacturing. We have that opportunity, we just need to make sure that we get it right. Companies also need to be supported to find the staff that are needed to do the work that in this growing sector. So we have also developed a program we call Kazi Bora, together with an organization called Generations Kenya, where we are working with them to provide opportunities for skilling into the textile industry, but a very important part of that skilling program is also one about empowerment, how to feel sure about who you are and what you can demand in the workplace. How are you an effective employee, but how can you also stand up for your rights? And I think this is a very, very important topic, that it's about giving and taking in an employer-employee relationship, and that women in particular, but also men, need to be empowered to be a good employee. So I'm really proud that we have managed to develop these programs, and I'm challenging all of you here today to be open, constructive, and to really start this journey and this discussion with us. How can we develop this sector to be a good employer for women and for men, so that we can grow this sector together and create more prosperity in Kenya together? So openness and challenge each other, and I'm looking forward to our discussions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. The next speaker will hear from the chair of our Women in Manufacturing. We call it WIM. And Mary is also a manufacturer, so I cannot be represented by any other person better than Mary does. So, karibu.
A round of applause for Mary, the chair for the Women in Manufacturing in Kenya. Karibu.
So thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you. After Anthony speaks and give all the statistics, it leaves me not knowing what statistics to give, but to be here as one of the women in manufacturing. Allow me to say all protocols observed, because I've also noticed all the others we have agreed to have an easy morning. I'm the chair for Women in Manufacturing at the KEM. And Women in Manufacturing is a program that cuts across all sectors for KEM, where we are looking at all the women who are working in the manufacturing sector. We also look at the women-owned businesses or women-led businesses, the women who are there, so that we sit together, we create and build warmth with ourselves so that we can be able to scale and grow our businesses and tap into the opportunities of what we are here to do today. And today we are talking about the textile sector. And you have heard our CEO talk about the opportunities that are there. But in Kenya also we say that most businesses are either micro or small. And we also say that most businesses are either owned, led. Thank you. We also know that most businesses in the micro and in the small space are owned by women. In the textile sector is a sector where we have many women who are there. Most of them have found themselves in that sector, not because they chose to be in that sector, but it's a sector that has been defined that the work there is for women. And it is defined for women because people will think that stitching clothes is a work of women. In our culture, naturally, that is what that comes in. But I think here today, we are here to discuss and explore the opportunities that are there in the textile sector, because as we stitch the clothes, we want to be fashion designers, we want to own those industries, We want to build capacity so that we can have products that can be accepted in the market globally. We have IDH that has come on board to work with the women in the textile sector to help build capacity. Anthony has said, if you look at the value chain of the textile sector, and he's talked about growing cotton, we need to have capacity of understanding how to grow the cotton. What are the seedlings that we need to have? What is the climate for growing cotton? What are the procedures of growing cotton that would fit in the market? For me, I think those are the opportunities as ladies we must listen to. We have experts in the rooms who have done research and they have all this information. Let us tap and understand A to Z and see how we can fit in the value chain. Today, Anthony was talking about the entities at the EPZ. We may all not own entities at the EPZ, but there's work that is being done there. There's employment that is being built there. There could be opportunities, and I'm sure they are there, of subcontracting for the people who are working at those industries at the EPZ. We need to listen and understand those subcontracting opportunities that we can be able to plug in so that we take advantage of that. We have experts today who will tell you that the value chain at the EPZ in the processes are this, and this is how you can plug into the value chain. So ladies, let us get today out of the mind of what we do day to day and look at the bigger picture and understand the opportunities that are there in the bigger pictures and how we can plug into those opportunities, or how we can remodel our businesses to fit into those opportunities. These are the things that we do at the Women in Manufacturing. I learned a manufacturing entity. I like to give that example because I'm doing packaging and I did not have a background of manufacturing. I was only bold enough to be in a room like this, listen and point out those opportunities, and be bold enough to take the risk of getting into that. Because one of the problems that we also have with ladies is that we want to be in the businesses that are so safe. We want to live in our comfort zone. So I'm challenging you today that let us get out of our comfort zone. Let us embrace to do those things that we think, or they sound to be so big that you shy away even to start because you see them so big. The opportunities at KAM that we do for the small and the micro, putting together the small, the micro, and the big for networking, for matchmaking, to learn from each other, to encourage each other so that we can be able to embrace those opportunities. We did a study I think about 2 years ago, as Women in Manufacturing, to understand why are we not being able to scale. And some of those things that I've talked about came out because manufacturing would ordinarily be looked into as a space for men. But I've said the advantage with the textile, with the apparel sector is naturally, you just think at home when a dress is torn, a brother will tell the sister, help me to stitch this. So that is an advantage is a cultural advantage for us, but we cannot remain there. We have to look at how it is that we scale that so that we own those businesses and we get access to those markets that we are talking about. We need to understand the requirements of the market. This is part of what the program of IDH will help. That if you want to send your clothes to Europe, what are the standards that Europe require in times that you're producing? We need to stop thinking about dressmaking. We get into industries, textile industries, and produce embrace mass production so that we access the market. We are now talking about the Free Africa Continental Trade. And the Free Africa Continental Trade talks, we are the Africans, we need to send our clothes across, but we are not going to be able to embrace that if we do not put our time to understand even the culture of the people who we want to stitch for. What do they wear? So if you make miniskirts for the Nigerians who like to wear long akaras, that means then you don't understand the market that we are embracing. So there are small little things that we must open our ears and understand. The culture of our customer, so that you design in that culture. We also have to understand that we cannot do everything. When there's teaching and there's fashion designing. If you're not a fashion designer, work with a fashion designer. If you're good in operating and stitching, get into the value chain that can be able to produce that. So understand the ecosystem and see where your strengths are, and then you're able to fit in. We've talked also about mainstreaming the gender inclusivity in our workspaces. We are doing that, but it begins with us. Even before the industries are looking into how many women we are working with in our office, in the industries, in our small entities, it is also important that we are able to embrace that. And don't embrace it because this person is your sister or is a person next to you. Embrace it because the next person is an expert. Capacity build them, equip them to be the expert so that they can deliver whatever is required. I always tell my ladies friend, and I will give example of access to finance. People ask me, Mary, how have you been able to access finances to grow my businesses to the level that they are? I tell them because when we go to a financier, I am a lady, yes, there are opportunities that are there, but I go and approach them as a business owner. I have done the right thing that are required in any business to access finance. Then I come in wearing two hats. I have done the right thing. I'm a woman. There are opportunities for women, so I have double opportunities. But you cannot just go with the card of, I'm a woman, give me money, but you have not done the right thing, or you have not streamlined the structures and the processes of your businesses. So when you talk about also, and I'm sure these are also things that we're gonna be learning through the sessions, in the textile industry, in the apparel sector, how many alternative financing that are there? How can you approach that? But you'll not get that because you're a woman. You'll get that because you're a woman and you're doing the right thing that are required for any business. So always remember, the enterprise has to run as an enterprise. So there are structures and models that are required for an enterprise. Whether you are small, whether you are big, align yourself that. It will open up, give you access for market, for finances, to plug into those value chains that I'm talking about. Your enterprise must be right. Then the opportunities are coming in because we are embracing, or we have incentives that are coming in for us being women. So let's take advantage of that. My conclusion for today, ladies and gentlemen, I will say, the forum that we have today is giving us a platform to discuss and address issues related to gender, not only in the textile and the apparel sector, but also in the wider manufacturing sector. Let us exchange ideas, and we highlight significant opportunities to scale our businesses and to help accelerate gender-positive actions in our businesses. This is crucial in increasing women participation in manufacturing. I say, ladies, let's hold each other's hand. Manufacturing is not for men. Manufacturing is for us. I always say, and maybe we'll task KEM one of these days to do that study. How many women are in the manufacturing sector? So that we are not given fear that manufacturing is not for us. We start preaching the gospel and saying manufacturing is for us. What do we need to do so that we get into the mainstream of manufacturing? We stop making tea. We stop not only stitching, but we own those businesses. Thank you, and I'm happy. I'll be leaving shortly because I have another engagement. But in the evening later, I'll come in to see how we spent the day. And I'm hoping that we are able to work together and be accountable for the project that we are running with IDH. And accountability, Bona CEO, is success and scaling the women in the textile industry. Thank you.
A minute, Madam Mary, before you leave the stage. In the spirit of holding one another's hand towards scaling to the heights that we want as ladies, maybe can you share with us just one that important thing that a woman must have or should embrace in order for her to get to where she's supposed to be?
Thank you. And I always talk about being bold. As women, we must learn to be bold. And being bold does not mean that you step on every other person. It is be present. I say the first thing when there's an opportunity, appear. Then when you appear, get to understand what is required, equip yourself so that you're not just there and you're not well equipped. And when you are in the room, listen carefully. This is why I have talked about for whatever else that you do today, highlight and get home with the opportunities that are there. You cannot do everything. Pick only one of those opportunities and maximize and align yourself with those opportunities. So be pleasant, be bold, and equip yourself.
Much. Ladies, I hope we are taking notes. Can we give a round of applause for Madam Mary? And by the way, Mary has been recognized on different forums, on different platforms, and she has been awarded the Zuri Award winner 2019. How about that? Can we give her a round of applause as well? Congratulations, Mary. So as we said, we're waiting for the two PSs to join us. I'm not sure how far they are, or they are within the reach, so anytime they'll be joining us. So for now, allow us to start the panel discussion. My colleague Sally will be taking through the first session, then thereafter, we're going to go to the second session. Anne Kabugi, you here? Irene Kimashia and Rodolfo Asinga, please take to the stage for the panel discussion.
A round of applause for them. Just probably you might be wondering, Anne Kabugi is a regional gender lead, at IFC. So karibu sana, Bi Anne. Irene Kimashia, she prepared the way for me, and I'm here today. Appreciated. Karibu sana, Irene. She's the head of corporate communications and corporate affairs at Institute of Human Resource and Management. A round of applause for her. And finally, Bwana Isinga, Rudolph Isinga, are you in the house? Oh, I had no, a round of applause for the gentleman. I had not seen him, so karibu sana. It's going to be a very interactive session. Feel at home, feel free. Let me have my seat probably here, right here. And Rudolph can be sandwiched, here. So I'll break protocol today and start with the gentleman because the ladies are, we have so many in here today, being our day. Let's start with you, probably an introduction of yourself, what you do, and then we can proceed to what's next. Karibu sana. Let me have a microphone, another microphone for all of them. Let's do a mic check, put it on, switch it on. I think we're good. So let's start with the gentleman. When I sing, the stage is yours. Introduce yourself.
My name is Rudolph Isinga. I'm the general manager, the group general manager of New White Apparel and Mahalakshmi. The companies are based in Athi River. We manufacture world-class products for export market. And we have a capacity of about 5,000 employees. 85% of these employees are female.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
85. Did you hear? A round of applause. 85% is actually female. The ladies in the house, Jamani, makofi for him. That's something they're doing very well. They're already getting it right in the market. Irene, to you, introduction, just what you do. Yes.
All right, thank you, Sally, and it's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Sally and I went to school together, so allow us to enjoy that moment. My name is Irene Kimashia. I head Corporate Affairs and Communications at the Institute of Human Resource Management. IHRM is the regulator of the HR profession in Kenya, a state corporation established under an act of parliament. We currently have a membership of slightly over 17,000. 65% of that membership is women. So we are really keen on gender mainstreaming issues, and I'm delighted to be here this morning. Thank you, KAM, for the collaboration, and we are happy to continue supporting this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. And to my far right, Anne.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies. Big shout out to all the gentlemen in the room. We are so used to just having women in most of our gender equality conversations. So my name is Anne Kabugi. I'm the regional gender lead for IFC. IFC is the private sector lending arm of the World Bank Group. So that means we work with private sector companies to address gaps in women's leadership, employment, entrepreneurship, and we support them to discover and exploit new opportunities that come with investing in women and men.
Beautiful. A round of applause for all our panelists today. So maybe I'll just go straight to you, Anne, and just to get to find out, you've spoken about the organization you get to represent, and probably for the person who's in here, for the person who's watching us live on our live streams, what would you say is what you have done to ensure that we get to achieve the gender equality or have more women, in the manufacturing sector, especially the textile and apparel sector?
I think it would be good to look at where women sit in our economies and in business as well.
Yeah.
In Kenya, women are slightly over half of the population at 50.3%, and that is growing. And we made a lot of progress when it comes to areas like access to education. Adult literacy levels in Kenya are at about 82% now. And I think you have seen the numbers that CAM presented, that the majority of women are working in manufacturing. And the manufacturing sector is actually the second largest employer of women after agribusiness. And of course, in agribusiness, there's a lot of informality in agribusiness value chains. And that's after you take out the public sector, especially in education, where all the teachers there are women. So when you think about this gender dividend, this is something that we all need to harness. We need to work with manufacturing sector and look at where do women sit as leaders in manufacturing, as employees in manufacturing, and let's be clear and and very frank about where women sit in manufacturing. They're actually on the factory floors in the lower cadre type of jobs where they pay less, and they're mostly casual employees, so to say. So we need to think about how do we then harness this power of parity when women are seated at the bottom of the pyramid? What do we need to do as employers in manufacturing? We also need to think about women as entrepreneurs in manufacturing as well, and I think Mary has hit the nail on the road in terms of what women are doing, and the CAM chairman also CEO also spoke about getting more SMEs and what women can do, and we're going to hear a lot about women entrepreneurs in this space as well. So integrating gender across the spectrum. And research is showing that there's very, very strong evidence that companies that have more women in leadership outperform their peers. Companies that have gender diversity in employment perform better because there's a cross-pollination of ideas, there's high innovation, and actually the manufacturers who are seated in this room, they'll tell you they like to have women in the most sensitive sections of the assembly line because women have attention to detail, they're more productive, and there are less losses when you put women there. So what can we do more to boost these women? What can we do more to be able to harness the gender dividend? And the latest report that I read from McKinsey, looking at where women sit in our African economies, they were saying that we can improve our collective GDP by 10%, over 10 percentage points, if we reduce these gender gaps. There's a lot that manufacturing has to do with that.
Beautiful. I think that's very, very great. A great point, and you've actually taken me back. I wanted to point out what the Women in Manufacturing Chair, Bingishu, just spoke about. As women, the whole idea of we have to be bold. You have to appear fast, because if you don't appear, then you miss out on the opportunity. So appear, be bold, get to equip yourself, and get to choose. You cannot be a jack of all trades. Choose that one thing that makes you stand out, and most definitely you will be out there doing something different. And a point you've also just spoken about is what CEO spoke about, and he was giving a story about the mother, knitting. I hope CBC is doing that now, teaching our children. I don't know if you remember growing up, if you were ever taken through classes, you make leg warmers. Did you ever do that in your schools? Those who've gone to Kenyan schools? You remember those sessions? Yeah, and a lot of people who used to really, do them so well were actually the female students. So there's actually power, and there's something different when women are given the opportunity. Challenge to you, Bwana CEO. We're looking forward to that report that Bingishu was just, talking about. Let's see how many women are actually the manufacturing business, and how are the companies, actually, progressing, or actually in terms of how they're doing. When I think you spoke about 85% of your workforce being women. Maybe somebody's wondering just how were you able to achieve that, and why give them that much space?
Well, when you look at our business setup, and actually when we started operating this garment manufacture for the last 20 years, you find that the majority of the employees are women. And the reasons why we prefer women on production is that they have that passion on the garment and the quality. You'll never go wrong when it comes to quality. You know very well, like if you are dressing at home, when you're putting on the clothes,
Yes.
your wife will tell you, today you are smart.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Like
So
I'm sure a few men in the house were able to
that's
choose their
exactly-
ties today. Yeah.
That's exactly what is linking them to the textile to apparel industry. And we thank the government that is really encouraging, because we want to expand the business so that more women can also join the business also.
Beautiful, beautiful. Maybe, Kimasha, Irene, in terms of policy, what's in place?
All right, thank you, Sally. We are not limited in terms of policy frameworks and legislations, from the employment law to affirmative actions. Actually, IHRM falls under the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action. So in terms of policy, opportunities are there. In terms of the employment law, in terms of financing, which my colleague has talked about, for me, Sally, allow me to move a bit further towards implementation.
Oh, yes.
Because policy frameworks are there. The kind of work that Cam is talking about, if you see the numbers that the CEO was presenting to us, frameworks, policies are in place. Opportunities are there. The Big Four agenda provides frameworks of how to promote manufacturing as a sector, and the textile and apparel sector to be specific. So the issue of implementation, if we are going to achieve what Madam Mary has spoken about, we really have to address issues of perception, the underlying factors of stereotypes. It is one thing to say women be bold and show up. It's another thing for women to believe that they can be bold and show up. It's another thing for the environment to allow them opportunities to be bold and show up. So from a human capital perspective, what are we doing in the HR space to build that capacity, to ensure that whether it's SMEs, whether it's big manufacturers, they have the right people driving their people agenda. So whether you're able to employ them, or whether you're able to outsource them, whether as a manager you can build the skills to manage your people so that you hire right, you provide opportunities in your framework, in your structures, to provide these opportunities for women. I saw we wrote in our program gender equality. I would like to challenge us. Are we pursuing equality, or are we pursuing equity? Because equality is assuming that we are all the same.
Oh, yes.
If we are given 1,000 shillings, we can make do with the 1,000 shillings. But equity is about, I need 1,000 shillings and I need some training. Yeah, and my colleague, the gentleman, needs 1,000 shillings and he needs flexible working hours, for example. So it's about what do I need as an individual so that we can achieve equal outcomes. Yeah, and not just equality. So the policy frameworks are in place. For us is how do we implement them? How do we make sure we have the right capacity to embrace gender equity, allow me to call it gender equity, and also at the end of the day have this sense of belonging, that everybody has their best version at work because they feel that the place of work is conducive, whether you're a lady or a man, and in this particular case for women, that we have flexible working hours. The lady who spoke earlier, I think Lucille, from DHI.
Jenny.
IDH,
Yeah,
Jenny.
IDH, Jenny,
Yes,
the
spoke
country
about the Sweden she heard about and the Sweden she experienced as a woman. So are we providing platforms where women can come to work and have their, support, caregivers, have access to education and healthcare? So for me, other than policy framework, is moving towards implementation because I believe our policy setup allows us to have these conversations. Thank you.
I've been lucky to actually, go through and basically see a few things that, actually not a few, a lot that the government is actually doing. So in terms of policy, we are actually on a beautiful course. And I'm seeing Anne really nodding her head. Just Anne, maybe tell us the frameworks that a company, organizations, the women in here today can be able to put in place to ensure we achieve this which we're trying to push today. What are some of those things that companies can actually do to ensure that we achieve the equal opportunities, as Kimasha put it? Or equity.
Equity. So there are three key barriers for women in the workforce. The first one is childcare. Because women bear the disproportionate burden of care, both care responsibilities and domestic responsibilities as well. And that can make the difference between a woman deciding to get into the workforce or a woman deciding to come back from maternity. To the choice between working and staying at home. That's number one. Number two, it's sexual harassment. Bullying and sexual harassment in the workplace. And I'm sure all of us, are familiar with the latest development in the tea sector. And this is something that women go through silently, but also culturally, we sweep it under the carpet. We don't talk about it. And we are seeing the impacts on women themselves. They just sit there. They don't want to ask for what is rightfully theirs. And then they miss out on opportunities because of the quid pro quo type of, harassment and bullying that we see in the workplace. But most importantly, this has a huge impact on the sector. We've seen what happens in the supply chains. I was actually talking to a friend of mine this past weekend, and she just happens to be a manufacturer in that space, and she was negotiating an opportunity, and they got back to her and said, we won't touch it at this moment because it's a problem in that sector of yours, in that country. So something that just happened with one of the peers in the sector has reverberated, and it's affecting the whole sector as well. And that has far-reaching impacts in terms of what we are able to sell, in terms of building strong, sustainable supply chains. We have to think about that as well. Number three is growth opportunities for these women in manufacturing. We've talked about 80%, 85%, but they are all seated at the base of the pyramid. Not that they're not learned, but that is where the jobs are. So how can we make sure that these women grow up the career ladder? What kind of skills do they need to be able to develop, whether it's supervisory skills? Because you won't be employed in a firm for 30 years and you sit at one point in the assembly, you might even get some physical deformities. You need to be able to get a supervisory role so that you walk around and give instructions as well. Yeah. So base of the pyramid solutions for the women that work in manufacturing are very, very critical in terms of helping helping them to grow and also to grow their incomes as well. When we talk about childcare, businesses need to think about not just family-friendly workplace policies, and we have some good maternity policies in Kenya where it's 3 months and I think 14 days for men as well. But what more can we do to enable women to work flexibly when they come from maternity leave? And what more can we do to train the men and women, the male and female supervisors, to understand that this woman has just come from maternity? What does division of labor look like so that this woman can come in and be able to go home early and vice versa? We need to think about that as well. The other thing we need to think about is investing in childcare. Access to affordable, reliable, and high-quality care, because the care we see in Kenya and in many African countries actually is fragmented and very low quality. So I won't trust my child in a care center for 8 to 12 hours. I'm not sure what is happening there. They're not properly regulated, enforcement of the regulations as well. So both the business and the government have a role to play in that space. Companies need to think about investing in childcare, care center, creches in the workplace. Think about models that can help distribute the cost, like shared models in places like EPZs where there is geographical concentration that can bring down the cost as well. And then on the government side of things, we need to think about the care economy as actually a viable economic sector. And we've seen a lot of women who are setting up care centers, but they need to be properly regulated. They need to be encouraged to grow as well. Perhaps think about, I know subsidies are not a very favorite one, the current economic times that we are living in, but thinking about how a care center can actually make the difference for women to be able to get into the workforce as well.
Thank you so much. And when you speak about care, women generally, whether you're a biological mother, a guardian, if you want a woman's world to stop, then send a message or call concerning their children, and their mind will not be where you need them to be. It will just be focused on your children. So if their children are okay, if their care is fine, then we get to have full percent, the workforce just gets better every time. But I think that you spoke about it, 5% of your workforce being women. Maybe what's the distribution like? Because we've all, through the statistics and what Anne was just talking about, you get to find out these women, most of them are at the lower cadre and not at the top. So how is the distribution like at your company?
Well, in our company, the setup is that most of the ladies who come from the secondary school, they go in for job training, and some of them, I think Mr. Rajiv is also doing a good job because he has set up a training outside the APZ.
Yes.
Congratulations to that, because now we are able to get the trained, skilled workers. And then we have single mothers, those who come for employment. They have kids, and they need to take care of the kids at home. Mm-hmm. I mean, we give them jobs. Then we have employees who are married to their colleague, the partner. They work together in the factory. So there are 3 types of categories in our factory. But if you look at the setup of the whole organization, as Madame is saying, that you need to come up with a tailor-made policies that can suit the employees. You give them a good environment, working safety environment. Like we are talking about an employee who is proceeding for maternity. Then after 6 months, you remove her from maybe machine to give her a lighter job, and you give her a better, comfortable seat that she can sit there while working. Mm-hmm. Because it's only 3 months for her to proceed to maternity.
Yes.
So we've come up with those policies in the factory, and it is working very well. I can give you an example. When there's a time we were recruiting employees outside, the HR went and said, there's a lady who is out. She's looking for a job, mm-hmm. but she's pregnant. She said she's 6 months pregnant. We told her, no, there's no problem. Just employ her. Bring her in. When she's going for maternity, we'll give her, unpaid leave, and then she looks for a man to take care of the baby. So we extend all those policies to the employees so that we can have a conducive working environment. And you see, when the employee is satisfied, and when she's working or he's working in a conducive environment, the production capacity goes up. So that is the true picture of production. If they are not motivated, they will never produce. That's the truth about it. So if you don't pay them, please you'll sit there and you'll not get anything. Mm-hmm. So we are trying to come up with all those policies that can make us grow in industry. and it is really working. And because we've even come up with circles, they can invest the money and start their own business. And we are also doing some training, occupational health training in the factory. And we have a nurse who is taking care of, because they need to go for maternity or for clinics, and they're being advised on, those are, the ladies have to visit the clinic most of the time. So we have put all those things because we subscribe to Business Code of Conduct. If you don't comply with the standards, you'll not win the market in America.
That's true.
That's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's either you comply or you lose the market.
That's true.
Yeah.
The same thing that the women in manufacturing chair, Gishu was talking about. You need to know, don't make miniskirts for Nigerians or West Africans. If you miss it out, that's it. And as you've said, you pay them, you train them, you educate them, you motivate them. Then you're able to get beautiful results. Just a round of applause for one of our chief guests. P.S. Madam Susan Mangeni is in the house. Karibu sana. Karibu sana. It's really humbling to have you in place, because of course, without policy, then we're just making noise. But with policy, then we're making the right place, having the government in place. And speaking of policy and government, Kimachia, just maybe for the manufacturers, those who aspire to be manufacturers, those who are already in the house right now. Speaking of, childcare, the things that we're able to do to basically motivate from the government kind of side. What are you doing to just make sure that this ground is really the opportunities, the motivation for the people who are aspiring to be manufacturers, especially ladies, that the opportunities are actually there and they get to be motivated to basically access them. What are you doing in terms of policy?
Sally wants to give me the policy question. Yes. I am not representing government. Madam PS is here. I'm sure she will speak for government.
Able to drive it.
Yes, because ours is building the capacity of the people managing people.
Yeah.
So from a policy perspective, in terms of building the capacity of HR professionals who are managing the people, the women.
Yes.
Childcare is one of them, which my colleague has really extensively talked about. So do you have a policy internally that takes care of maternity leave? The employment law provides for 90 days paid, paternity leave 14 days. You can extend and take your leave days to cover as well as your maternity leave. Now we have mothers' rooms in organizations.
Oh yes, we do.
Even though we do not have the breastfeeding bill passed yet, the Ministry of Health has a framework that provides for what a mother's room should look like, what equipment is needed, and many organizations have embraced that, including government institutions, with the private sector, of course, leading in terms of providing that. Mm-hmm. In terms of gender mainstreaming and opportunities, affirmative action kind of initiatives. For example, for human resource professionals in Kenya, we have mentorship and coaching programs. Research shows that women, a lot more than men, rely on mentorship. If they hear Mary who is doing it and share her story of how she did it, you're more likely to build the confidence of women that way, compared to just, speaking to them without sharing the personal experiences. Because a woman will want to know, how did you handle your children when you were setting this up? How did you borrow money, which you already spoke about. So mentorship and coaching is critical, even as a policy. Put it in place, provide a framework, pair people up, put them in care groups where they can support each other. Another one that has really worked is training or capacity building that is designed for women. So like for our HRM, we have HR professionals, women in HR, which we just had in March, where you just bring women together to have those conversations. And it's amazing the things that happen. So from a policy perspective, in my space, I will not speak for government, is that have programs that are internal, customized for your business. There are things that have been seen to support women get into any business, whether it's manufacturing or any other. She spoke about childcare, health and safety is another one, capacity building and confidence, which mentorship and coaching can take care of, and just a conducive environment where a woman can be her best self and not feel the need to take on a masculine persona so that they can be heard or they can be effective. But also for women, building your capacity as a person. Because like Mary said, you just can't show up and wave the women card. It might work against you. So enhance your capacity and take advantage of the policy frameworks that are in place. Whether it's procurement, whether it's access to financing, you have to be ready to take advantage of those opportunities.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you've directed us to a conversation in terms of, capacity. So, and just as we try to probably wind up, because I'm saying we're probably running out of time, in terms of capacity building, what would you advise, in terms of capacity building to basically enable the women who are down here to be able to come to the top?
I don't like that word, capacity building, but we shall use it. I think the one thing that we have to think about as manufacturers is what kind of skills are we employing at the entry level, and what will it take to move those women and men at that level from the factory floor to higher levels in the organization. Those solutions have to be very customized, because what we see in the corporate world is, you've got the Harvard type of training that come from human resources perspective, but you find that sometimes the employees that are coming at the entry level that are casual employees need a lot more than how to manage people. A lot of it is more soft skills like confidence building. There's a lot to do with things like financial literacy. How do I make ends meet from day 1 to 30th of the month? There's a lot to do with dealing with bullying and harassment in the workplace, and also how do I find my voice as an employee who's seated at the base of the pyramid. One of the programs that we've run with Nike supply chain actors in one of our markets in Vietnam was building the capacity of those employees that have sat down there at the factory floor for so long, and see what career paths look like for them to get them to higher levels as well. So we need to take those training and other offerings that we have and adopt them to speak to the needs of these women at the base of the workforce, and to think about what more is happening on the factory floor and what more is happening in their own personal lives that can help to bring them to work and to retain them and to be able to promote them and to give them some form of improvement in terms of income, because those are the issues that we have with the women, and they stay there and then eventually they make a decision to leave as well. I want to give a good example of a company that we work with in one of our renewable energy solar distribution, where they realized that they were having a very high turnover rates among women that were having out there in the field. So these employees don't come into the office a lot. They're out there selling, they are mostly remote. You see them every once, 2 weeks or so. But they wanted to understand, why is there so much turnover among these women? Reason number one was client aggression, harassment from a client perspective. So we have to really understand what these people are going through, what business models are we running, and then adopt those solutions to those business models to protect and also strengthen those employees in those specific places in the workforce.
Very keen on that. And maybe, because we're not just having discussions, the 3 of us or the 4 of us, I'll take you to the floor and probably have 3 questions to panelists, and then I can come back to them to give a few pointers. A microphone? Okay.
Thank you, Madhi. Good morning to all. My name is Rajiv Arora. I'm really very excited and pleased to be here today with this discussion on how we can empower women in the space of manufacturing. And someone just mentioned that women should take up manufacturing. A lot has been said, right, from the opening remarks and from the IDH representatives. But to me, I think in this discussion, what is most important, which probably is not really coming out to my mind, is what are we really doing in terms of empowering women to take them to the space so that they adopt manufacturing as a profession, and not only that, be part of that. There's a fabric which grows in manufacturing, And that fabric should not be homespun only. It should be commercially spun. So to me, I think where I would probably like to have a question is, what is a percentage of your turnover in terms of numbers, in terms of financials, that you put for empowering women in the space of their growth of mindset, becoming bold to adopt, and also take the challenge which was mentioned by the Women in Business chair, bold and grab, but they can only understand if they know that this opportunity they can achieve. And that you need to be prepared, and you need to be inclusive in terms of understanding to build capacity, because the women working mostly today in the EPZ at least are not college educated. So but it's not necessary that you have to be college educated to be in manufacturing. That is the key. But you just need to show the opportunity. So what is being done, and what percentage of commitment is made by the industry as such? I would even say if it's 0.5%, it's a good number because they have big turnovers. But could you just share what is the commitment in terms of empowering women to go into manufacturing or into a higher space, into middle management or senior? Thank you.
1, 2. Thank you very much for that question. I think Bwana Isinga, you'll probably go fast in responding as Irene and Anne come after you. What exactly you are doing. Did you get his question?
You're asking me or the other?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm actually asking you to be the first one to respond because each of you is going to respond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
apologies.
I've heard what Mr. Rajiv was asking, and
Yes.
we are talking about what percentage have we achieved in empowering of women. I can say that since we started operation, actually, we have seen some of our employees going out of the factory, opening up their business, and I have a very big number. I can say maybe 2 or 3% outside, and they're running their business outside. Same business, they bought the machines, and they're able to set up their business outside. And you find that some of the employees also migrate to the rural area with a view of maybe setting up their business for supply of uniforms in various schools. We really encourage them. We don't want them to just be employees permanently. We also encourage them because we work with a financial institution like Equity who comes and train them on how they can invest. And I mean, if you have an employee who is good in investment, that is better for the organization. Well, we have challenges the way, because you see most of the business is concentrated in Athi River. And I was looking at a situation whereby can we devolve this manufacturing to rural areas? Because we have women who are suffering in rural areas. They cannot migrate to urban because of lack of financial capacity. So what we are trying to encourage the government is to devolve manufacturing, take this manufacturing to the doorstep in 47 counties, so that those female employees, instead of them migrating from rural to urban, they can still get jobs in those places. And I'm assuring you that with my experience, because I was in Ethiopia, and you see the factory is 1,000 kilometers away to Djibouti, which is an export exit. So 1,000 kilometers away from Addis Ababa to Djibouti, you can still set a factory in Busia or anywhere, even in Garissa, and you'll still, because we have a port in Mombasa. So we want government to look into that thing and not say that let us just concentrate in Athi River and Nairobi. Let us devolve manufacturing so that our female employees can also get employment in those rural areas. Otherwise, Mr. Rajiv, we are trying to work out on that program because I'm encouraging. In fact, I've brought you remember 2 companies owned by ladies, Rooflex and TUI. I've been helping them to set up factory in EPZ, and we have to do it. We'll work together to make sure that the women play a very big role in the manufacturing sector. Thank you.
Great job you're doing. A round of applause for the gentleman, Bwana Isinga. And a good point that you've just pointed out, I believe Madam PS will pick it up, devolving, just making sure we get to devolve, these opportunities, not just in the main city, but in other places. If it's Loitoktok, if it's Turkana, if it's Lamu, if it's, all the way in Busia, let the story be the same, not just different because you're in Nairobi. Maybe, Irene, do you have something to add in response to Mr. Rajiv's question?
Hello? Okay. I may have something to add, but not necessarily to his question. Ideally, gender mainstreaming initiatives should be allocated about 5% of the budget in any institution. I don't know how many of us are achieving that. We probably need to do our homework and check. But maybe to add to, I get his frustration when he says the people we have on ground do not necessarily have the capacity and the skills to take up the roles that you're encouraging us to and the opportunities to give them. So then the challenge would be, what programs do we have as manufacturers to build the capacity? And I understand what you mean when you say you don't like the word capacity building. Yeah, because it sounds like put people in a room together, project some slides here, and we have lunch breaks, and in the evening we assume that we have learned. Are we designing programs that first do a need assessment to establish that these are the needs, these are the gaps, then design programs that are conducive and upskill and reskill these ladies so that they do not even have to learn a whole new certificate program? It's probably an improved skill or competency that can enable them become a line manager or move up the ladder and earn a little more money or have the confidence to move out of employment and start their own business. So what programs are we running and who is running this program? Yeah, Mary said do not try and do everything. So the challenge, and especially with SMEs, is because of the nature of the business and the lack of resources, you find the vision bearer drowning with the vision because they want to be the accountant, they want to be the HR, they want to be the line manager on the floor, they want to be, the executive making strategic decisions. So how can you collaborate with other solution providers so that when you're designing solutions for your business to build that capacity and to support the women, then you're not drowning or doing the wrong thing for your business. And so my challenge to us is have on board professionals who can support your business. Thank you.
A good closing remark there. Have professionals, and of course, what are you doing? Ask yourself that question. And something to add in response to Mr. Rajiv's question?
Sure, I won't speak to the budget because I don't run a factory. I just wanted to just expound a bit on the solutions. Where do you start and how do you know that you're making progress?
Oh, yes.
I think step number one is that you have to understand the extent of the problem in the workforce and the gaps and the drivers of that problem. So one of the things that we do with the companies that we work with is that we help them to undertake gender diagnostics, or what you call employment diagnostics, because it looks at everything, and they're able to understand the extent to which there's either bullying or harassment in the workforce, how big of a burden is childcare for both men and women, and the cost to business in terms of absenteeism, productivity, maternity return rates, etc. And we also have offerings that specifically address those issues, whether you're talking about the ability to improve the recruitment, retention, and promotion of women, as well as building the capacity of women. So we have an offering called Gender Equality Returns for manufacturing sector, and this is something we'd love to speak to with some of the companies here that specifically focuses on strengthening employment for those who sit, at the lower cadre jobs, and how to identify growth opportunities and career paths for them so that you can keep them in the business. So offerings do exist, but really need first and foremost to understand the cost to business and how much you need to invest where in terms of prioritizing.
Thank you very much. I have time for very limited time. 2 questions. Any other person, any question? Okay, I can see when I'm telling me, Sally, you're out of time. So just probably winding up, Anne, I'll go to you. I'll finish with the gentleman on breaking protocol today because he's the only man here trying to, spearhead and making sure that women get equal opportunities, as Kimasha directed us at first. So Anne, just closing remarks. What will be your closing remarks today as we finish up the discussion?
I'll just go to that slide that the CEO presented earlier in terms of the ambitions that we as a country have and we as a sector have in terms of moving manufacturing 20 by 30. Women have a very big role to play in that growth. If businesses will continue employing 80% of the people who will drive that growth are going to be women, then we have to think about what do we do to harness that potential. So where do we find these women? How do we get them to, to explore careers in manufacturing? And how do we retain them in the businesses so those businesses can grow? Because when you think about how much it costs a company to recruit, to train, to build talent, and then lose that talent, I think it's very, very important that the Kenya Association of Manufacturers actually puts up there the role of women as the labor force for the manufacturing sector and in terms of driving that growth. I didn't see that, but that does need to go that. And we need to talk to government about that, and we need to find where do we then get this talent to drive that growth.
And I'm happy that Madam PS is here today as government to actually drive that agenda for us. Kimasha, your closing remarks.
All right, thank you. I think there are practices that cut across sectors, whether it's manufacturing or any business, including government, that if we embrace them, we can have gender transformation and support women to do business better. So one is promoting gender diversity. And the diversity here, not just we have 1, 2, 3 women in the room. It's diversity of thought, diversity of perspective, skills and capacity. And I think that comes to your question, at what cadre are these women? Are we saying we have 85% of women working for us? Are they at a level of influence? Another one is creating safe and inclusive workplaces. I think Anne has spoken at length about discrimination, about sexual harassment, our places of work, and especially in the manufacturing space, safe for women to come to work and be productive. Gender sensitivity in terms of training and development. Are we building the capacity of leaders, of line managers and supervisors so that they're gender sensitive, that they know this is how you can handle a woman, these are some of the challenges that women are faced with, and even in language, simple things, how we refer to people, how we talk about them, and also the capacity for them to promote and influence and draw the best version from the women that they're leading. Gender development, sensitive policies and frameworks, I think that has been spoken about. Promoting equal pay and benefits for work done. We still have gaps in terms of pay. Are we paying our women the same way for the work done as the men? And finally, providing supportive infrastructure. We spoke about healthcare, childcare. Are we providing an environment where women can come to work and be productive because they're not worried about their loved ones? So I would leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, finishing up with the General Manager, Mr. Rudolph Isinga, just your closing remarks today.
My closing remarks is about involving of manufacturing to rural area, because I know there are so many women who are suffering. They also want to share the cake, because we should not concentrate it in the urban area. Mm-hmm. The rural area, I find that there are several women carrying a lot of the burden when they're left to the kids and they have nothing to put on the table. So we should put a smile on the women by maybe devolving manufacturing to rural areas. And also we need to work out with like-minded factories to make sure that we set up a good practice on production so that they can enjoy working environment. And that's the only remarks, because you know very well that investors are there, but they're looking at the principle of comparative advantage. Mm-hmm. An investor can set up a factory even in Kisii if you give better terms and conditions for them. They are ready to set up, so long as that you are able to reduce. They are looking at the cost, what are they making at the end of the day, and our women from the rural area can enjoy they can also join the industry. Thank you very much.
So creating that environment is very key. A round of applause for my entire panel, from Anne Kabugi there, Irene Kimashe, and Rudolph Isinga. Thank you very much for your time. I hope somebody somewhere has gotten something insightful from what you've shared today. Keep using the hashtag AGM Forum 2023 or hashtag Sustainable Manufacturing. Feel free to tag KAM_Kenya and at IDH Trade. I take this opportunity to hand over to my colleague, Mwanahamisi Hamadi. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sally, for that.
Asanteni. Yeah, you can have your seats.
And thank you so much for the speakers. Great insights there. Okay, now let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Bwana PS Geoffrey Kaituko, who's just joined us. Karibu sana. And Madam PS, once again, karibu sana. We really appreciate you coming here today. Now, the moment has reached, the moment has arrived. We were waiting eagerly to hear from one lady and one gentleman, Mr. Rajiv and Madam Lucy Lau. I don't want to talk more about them. Let me pass over the microphone to the CEO. Bwana Anthony, please come over. Tell us more about these two people. Makofi tena kwa Bwana CEO, tafadhali.
Thank you very much. And PS, Geoffrey Kaituko, good to see you and welcome. We know sometimes you and PS, Madam Susan Mangeni, a lot of things that compete in your calendar, so we always appreciate. And this session, we delayed it because we wanted you to be in the room, right? And we're talking about textiles. We're talking about how do we dream dreams that can scare us. I know government doesn't get scared easily, but we want to hear how can we build 1 million SMEs, MSMEs, as Madam PS, you keep on reminding us, and these are 1 million women who can join textile sector using the example from Lucy, who has alone built an army of 3,000 women. Lucy, if the number has increased, you'll correct me. And I don't even want to talk on her behalf. So this conversation started a while ago, and we're having a conversation with Rajiv, and we're saying, how can we bring a bigger group of people, and especially women, to participate in this sector? Sometimes when you talk about the numbers that I was showing you, it is easy to just think about EPZ and big manufacturing facilities for textile. But this opportunity, we can now bring it to every woman in the country, including the people seated around here. What you'll hear is not just for women out there, is even for people seated here. So allow me to welcome Lucy, who will share her story, will share what she's doing with women, will share what she sees as an opportunity, so that then we can have Rajiv to come and talk about some of the things that has happened elsewhere, not only in Kenya, and what we've been discussing about and what we intend actually to do. Lucy, karibu sana.
History has it that silk production was the most zealously guarded secrets in the world. For more than 30 centuries, it remained a monopoly of China, reserved for Chinese royalty at first. But now, even farmers in Makueni have joined in the production of the luxury fabric.
Hii ni premise ya Tosheka, tunaita greenage, na hapa ndio tunafanya mass production ya silk eggs, na ndio tuna distribute kwa farmers, ndio wazilishe alafu wazirudishe zikiwa cocoon.
Here, farmers get disease-free eggs, which within 19 days will be ready for harvesting.
Since the worms are very tiny at their initial stage, we do them in batches. So a farmer receives a batch of 10,000 worms, and from the 10,000 worms, he's supposed to bring back 20 kgs of cocoons.
And it does not require you to go out of the other normal duties of farming. You only need to get the castor leaves, and you leave them there, and you go doing your own businesses. During lunchtime, you also change the leaf because they eat so fast.
Now, what you're seeing is worms that are in the second insta, and they tend to grow as big as 6 to 7 centimeters. When they get to that stage, that is when they cocoon and they spit the fiber that is we use. And we buy them as cocoons, the whole fiber plus the pupa that has formed inside.
For control purposes, only a few of the pupa will be allowed to develop into butterflies, which then produce the eggs, and then the cycle starts again.
A pair of butterfly, after mating and production of eggs, they produce 300. So with that in mind, you can't let 10,000 butterflies, so they are controlled. And the way we control it is we select the cocoons that are healthy, and a male and a female, and place them in a cage where we call the dark room. The rest of the pupa is oven baked.
We also eat the pupa of the silkworm, which is nutritious. It's like the energy biscuit, or the jugu that we do. Although we use it for feeding the fish and the chicken, but it's very nutritious, so you can eat it and you enjoy. So whoever wants to eat with me, you can share.
The silkworm farming has created 3 different value chains, the silk for the textile industry being the primary product. Tosheka Textiles is the market here. The pupa can be used for fuel production. A Japanese investor has already positioned himself for the product from this enterprise. The castor plant that feeds the silkworm also produces seeds that can be processed into castor oil, as well as fuel.
We have a potential buyer from China. In fact, he's doing a factory in Kilome sub-county. So we'll have the value chain going on through. So there will be nothing to do to waste.
This program in Makueni can be replicated in hot parts of the country where the type of silkworm known as airy thrives best.
The other thing about the airy, we like it's a hardy worm. It hardly gets diseases, and that is why we took it, because it's not like a mulberry that needs a lot of care and protection. And so the other thing, it's good for blending with other fiber. So we can blend it with cotton and we can blend it with wool. It's very blendable. And it has thermal properties. So when we are selling it, it's the next fiber, silk fiber worldwide.
This production house in Wote turns the silk into exotic fabric after spinners make thread from the yarn.
Raw silk naturally can go to at least a 4,000 meter, depending, but it depends with the kind of blends you have done. After done the process and we get the floss, a kg is supposed to give you like 1 kg is supposed to give you like 28 meters of fabric.
With the collapse of the cotton industry, silk farming became the better option for farmers here in Makueni County, putting at least 6,000 shillings into their pockets at the end of every 19-day production cycle. Jobs for the weavers and spinners, and beautiful fabric for the textile industry. Sylvie Chebet, Citizen TV, Makueni.
Makofi sana. We are wondering, is that really possible? But it is possible. And Lucy's here to tell us more about it. And by the way, Lucy's also here because she's been on the forefront to champion for the rights of workers, especially female workers in this country and beyond. Karibu sana, tell us more about what you are doing and what we are expecting in the near future. And Lucy, is it possible to have 1 million women in the textile industry?
Textile surface designer by profession, and okay, so I am a textile surface designer by profession. I went to school here in Kenya, University of Nairobi, and explored my career worldwide. But having said that, many people ask me, how did you think of something like this? And I say it's been a journey. It's been a journey since 2006, for a long time, you can tell from my hair. And we started off with plastic bags, recycled plastic paper as fiber, because we couldn't really get enough cotton to do what we wanted to do. And I spent a lot of time in the US, but I spent every summer here in Kenya to try and build this project or build this business. So when I came, I really wanted to I said I'm a surface designer. I really just wanted to slap paint, color, pattern, print on fabric, because I knew we didn't have quality fabric in Kenya. So I thought I would import fabric from wherever else, China like everybody else, and put some color on it and do some good business. And came to Makueni. I am Kamba by default, but I landed in Makueni, and I loved the trip. When you're going to water, you're all invited. It's beautiful. I worked in the coast region for about 20 years, working with women, and that's where I created my passion for building the capacity of women and looking at their rights and influencing the economic, mindset, social status. So I worked with women in the Coast Province for 20 years, like I said, with a big NGO called Tototo Home Industries. We had a really big store. I want to say like 10,000 square or 5,000 square meters. And we sold a lot of products made by women. But when I went to the villages working with women as a designer, I really got touched, because every woman produced 1 or 2 bags. But the shop sold hundreds of bags. So the shop got all the money, and the women got $2, $3, whatever amount, which was really pathetic. And as I was working with them, I would go to a place called, as far as Shimoni, almost near Tanzania, and where there's a lot of fish, and this big truck would come and collect all this fish. And the woman that I'm working with, her roof was falling apart, and she would offer me a small piece of fish. That's all she had. But she was willing to share it with me. And I got really touched, because even that fish, eating it, you'd be like, oh, but I'd have to eat it because you were offered. That was the social work that you needed to do. So I had gone to the coast to really design, but I ended up being a social worker. And I ended up being so passionate and caught up in all that. And when you get into this social work, NGO work, it becomes a disease. But so I asked myself, why are we selling so much in the shop, and why are these people not moving up? And I said, I think I need to do something else. I looked for a course to do an international business course, analysis, and I went to the UK, sold everything of mine, didn't have any money. My car was a good asset at that time. And I did some research on my thesis, was really about looking at economic, social development and in developing countries. So I started to ask myself, I am skilled in textiles, and I could use my skill to impart and to impact the communities that I've worked with. And so I started this journey. Came back to Kenya. I really didn't want to work in the coast, so I decided, we went around with some friends of mine We had formed an NGO called Marafiki Arts, Kisumu, Makueni, and Coast. At that point, the government was trying to revitalize the textile industry, and Makueni Ginnery had come up. So I met this gentleman called David Masika, and I said, I want to do textiles here. I think this is a beautiful place, and he had a ginnery. So he said, excellent, come on. So we started the journey. But sad to say, cotton didn't really pick up. And I know Rajiv, my friend, is very passionate about cotton, but I normally have a very candid chat with him. And I said, you know, I've been here and this cotton thick is a myth. Because farmers would bring 13 kilograms of cotton at the end of one whole year. And they had worked so hard. And they were being paid a price they didn't know, because the market price would be 65 this year, hooray, we are happy. And next year would dip down to 30, and I've seen farmers burn their cotton. And I said to myself, I worked very hard. Many of you who may know me, I've knocked on so many government doors. In fact, one time we wanted to put microgene for women at home to just gene little cotton, even from their farm, and they can make yarn, because we had trained them to do that. And the Cotton Authority said, you can't do that, Lucy. And I said, why? And they said, because there's a policy that says only the 23 ginneries can gin cotton. And one, Mr. Nderito, I think he was then the Minister for Industry, I think, yeah? And I went to him and asked, why can't we have a gin? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, oh, no, that, so 1963 policy, scrap that. And he went to Parliament and fought for us, and we got some microgene. So it's been an uphill task. And because of that, I started looking for another fiber. Fast forward the story. I love cotton, and I'm still hopeful that we can do cotton. But I say to many of the people that I meet, if we were to do cotton, we'd have to make some really radical changes. But so I wanted something that was not so government controlled, because I was getting so frustrated knocking on all these government doors. And I found this silk fiber called Eri. It's not the common one that you know, Mulberry, which is the #1 silk, and I hope that we get to that. I'm actually wearing Eri silk and Eri cocoon. So I landed onto this, and it took us 3 years to get a permit from the government to import the Eri silkworm. And at one point, those girls that you're seeing there, Rogoro, Nyokabi, young people who probably just finished Form 4, I would have them knock on government offices. And in fact, they would call me and say, oh, you really embarrassed us when we went to this panel where there are all these men, scientists. They would say, what diseases or some technical, biological stuff about the silkworm, and they would call me crying, and I would say, go ask them if they know about mouku. And mouku is the traditional color that we use, natural dye that we use for printing. But so the issue is that even as you empower these young people, then they would be able, or they would say, oh, we can't go, we have to ask Liz, my sister, to introduce us to that minister. And I'll say, if you knock that door, will he eat you? No. Go and tell them what you know. So it took us 3 years with these girls, because I was away, to get our silkworm, which we did. We went through an efficacy trial with ISIPE. We went through trials with CalRO, and now we do have more than even 3,000 women being engaged in producing eri. However, the catch has been I have been trying to do this on my own. I have had many angels that have come my way, and through that we have reached where we are. Our latest angel is a company called ENI, which is a former AGIP, that needed castor seed to produce biofuel. And when they came to Makueni County, they asked, we want to castor planted and all that, and they were told, go look for Lucy, she's the one who does castor. And they came to me, I showed them our little castor farm and the women, and if this is the castor the county is talking about, then you're in trouble. So these are challenges that are actually opportunities for us. Because with ENI now, we are targeting over 10,000, which is still a small number, of farmers to grow castor. And many of these farmers are interested in castor because of the silkworm. There's something prestigious about it, growing, rearing silkworms. I ask young people, why do you want to do this particular kind of farming? And they tell me, if you notice, many young people want to do poultry, they want to do pig farming, they want to do some livestock. So we're in the livestock sector. And they say because it's not dirty, because it's clean. It's sort of, and also what it is associated with. So that could be a mindset that looks a little off, but it is a driving force for this industry. I want to say one of the things that the CEO talked about was the opportunity. If we talk about silk, India, which is the highest, China is the highest, but I always call India the highest because they also wear their silk. And they're also practicing what we are doing, handmade, which is really a stepping stone to higher manufacturing. They can't even supply their own domestic need. So there lies in a real big opportunity. If we look at the world, we were given some really mind-boggling figures of what the textile industry is looking at. So I think that we have a really big opportunity on this. That video is real, and thank you, Citizen, for doing that. I've been using it because it's easy for me to not to go through explaining how we make our textiles and all that. It's really captured there. So if I was to go down to basically who do we make our textiles for, or who are we as Tosheka Textiles, our value proposition is really to provide non-toxic, high quality, affordable, traceable textiles that are made from natural materials. So we do silk, we combine it with cotton that is really more available in terms of cotton yarn in Kenya. And our CEO told us about a meeting he was in last Sunday or some Sunday. And these are the things that are driving this market, the textile, that is traceable. We do have an ISCC certificate to show that our farmers are doing the right thing. You're planting with less or no pesticide, fertilizer, natural, eri silk itself, zero waste, and people can actually generate revenue from the silk. You saw the pupa. The pupa is a big industry. But today we are here to talk about textiles. The seed, we already have an off-taker, ENI, an Italian company. It ended up being Italian, not Japanese. And So basically, the market is not the problem. The problem is production. And this is what we are looking at right now. For you to get, even for me to get this silk top that I'm wearing right now, I had to fight with my staff. I said, I can't go to this meeting and not wear, and at least wear something different. Rajiv now knows my uniform. I always come with the same thing. So our lead times are so slow. Can we have a million women spinning money into their pocket? Yes. Do we have the market? Yes. If you look at, if you go to Dunn and Bradstreet, whatever, look at what the yarn market is like, you'll be surprised. What the fiber market is like, you'll be surprised. What the hand-woven fabric is like, you'll be surprised. Price, when we get to hand weaving, is not really an issue. And for us, we really take care of our women. Joanna, we've worked with her. She knows the problems we have, taking our fabric through EPZ, and they run the whole fabric, and they find all these differences. Some of it, we just need to educate our customers that a handmade piece is not a machine piece. And we are talking about manufacturing. We are going to get to manufacturing. If I may jump onto manufacturing, we talk about employing women at home or employing women, keeping, one of our speakers here talked about, EPZ guy, talked about moving, and we're now even talking with the government, industrial parks around the country. So basically, having women produce stuff or all this Juakali stuff, it doesn't have to be crude and bad. It can be quality. We need to invest on innovations, equipment, technology that can drive these lead times that I'm talking about, that can drive this quality that I'm talking about. And these are the frustrations that we have. We were now looking for a spinning wheel that can use solar so that women can use it, and we can increase their spinning of 1 kilo from 100 grams a day or a week to 12 times that. And that's where we need to be going. So I want to say that just in terms of talking about the challenges, we talk about lead times, quality, industrialization is not necessarily setting all these factories where women go and get low wages. We can set factories right where they are. Is my time up? Oh, okay. So let me say that what we have done can be a contribution to what we are discussing today. One, we've already done our proof of concept, so that could be a good starting point. We have a lot of data, empirical evidence. We have an opportunity to set a sericulture industry. We can set the precedence, and it doesn't have to be like the tea factory where workers get so little. At the farm gate, we can set things because it's new. Nobody's thinking about it. And if I think about empowerment, let me just say that I feel so proud of our women. Just to give you a small example, I was so surprised when one of our women said she got a loan from KCB because of the money she earns from us. Thank you.
Asante sana, Lucy Lau of Tosheka Textiles. I was once told, when you go to an event like this, don't leave without getting at least 2 contacts and 1 new idea. I don't know what you've done, but as for me, already I have 2 contacts. I have 2 wanawake bombas, one being Madam Lucy and Madam Mary, and 1 new idea. So As we move on, because we are almost winding up the first session, make sure that you also network slowly, because we are here for this, but also there is life after this. So make sure you utilize this. Let me give this opportunity once again to Bwana CEO to take us through the remaining of the program. Kwako Bwana.
Thank you very much. And let's clap for Lucy once again. As Madam Mary said, we need to be bold. And you also said that being bold is not stepping on other people's, not being aggressive. And I think you have seen soft-spoken Lucy doing extraordinary things, supporting women and giving them livelihood and hope. And now that we have heard up from Lucy, we have heard the problem is not the market. The problem is not the people do it. The problem is just to produce. And we have many people who are underemployed in the farms across the country, and many other people who are looking for something to do. Perhaps this is one of the pathways that we can take. But how do we get there? Rajiv, come and tell us how we can get there and what others have done. We'll do that briefly so that we can hear from our PSS, and then we break for lunch.
Makofi kwa Bwana Rajiv, tafadhali.
Thank you, CEO. Good morning. A lot of stories have been said with CEO, with IDH lady, Jenny. They all started with a story, and I think it's a precedent. I must do that as well. I come from a very old time of when this business started. So I'd like to share some very interesting story about women in business and what impact they can make in the livelihood. Women have been always in business, whether at home or outside. They may not have been paid for it, that's a separate issue, but they have always been in business. So we cannot just say that they are not in business. They understand the concept of business. When we talk of running a household, they understand how to manage with that little money the whole month and still feed the husband and the children, and probably take a little bit for themselves. So my story is when handloom sector developed in India in 60s, and of course I was not in that business that time, but I was hearing about it. I started in 76. The women really made a difference in developing the sector of handloom in India. And there is one story which I really go with, is that when exports started in handlooms into Germany, specifically, there was a fabric called bleeding Madras. I don't know if people have heard about it. It's a long back. It used to be called bleeding Madras. Madras check, rather. So in 1974, this became a very popular fabric in Germany and mostly in Europe. Everyone wanted to have a shirt of that fabric. And I started working with a company which was looking to develop that handloom fabric for exporting men's and ladies' shirts into Germany. And they asked me, can I go to the villages to see if I can build a scale for this fabric to export into numbers? The demand was like, every day people want to ship 5,000 to 10,000 shirts made out of handloom fabric. So I was shipped to Madras, which is the Chennai now, and I was just 26, 27-year-old. I had no clue how to manage. I had no understanding how to work, but I was just told to go and see what I can do. So I traveled all the places in southern India, which is Chennai, close to Chennai, which is called Salem, Tripur, Trishnapalli, Kannur, which all the women at home had a handloom. And this handloom was run 24/7. And how? They had one handloom in a hut near the house, and it was dug deep. So actually, you are standing not on the ground level, you are dug inside to run the paddles, and then this handloom is on the top, and it is run by the hand, And all the women in the house, generally you have 4 or 5 in those families, will take turns to run it. And they would not just produce 8 meters a day, they would produce 18 meters a day. Each day, 18 meters. My job was to take a vehicle, go house to house, collect one roll, get them packed and shipped to Delhi, which was the place they were manufacturing for export. And every day I was able to ship 3,000 to 5,000 meters. But in this process, I understood the impact of women who were working at home and also running the handloom while doing the home chores. And somehow I got so intrigued with this idea of handloom that I always thought why we should not think of handloom in Africa. But then, of course, look at the numbers which are there in handlooms. China, 5 million women, or probably the household involved. India, 1.5 million, which are doing mostly mulberry silk. You have different kind of silks, but India has the highest demand of silk saris, which the ladies like to wear, and that's a huge demand. But then in Ethiopia, you do something similar to eri silk, and there are more than 1 million women involved in silk. So I met my dear good friend Lucy in 2010, still having that idea of handloom. I was in a space of running an organization called ACTIV, Africa Cotton Textile Industries Federation, working with 27 African countries for developing value chain of cotton. But nobody was talking of handloom. And only one lady I found who was actually thinking of setting up this eri skill at that time on the ground. We met, we talked, we developed, and we have passed through now 3 different governments for discussing the same initiative. Unfortunately, the scale has not come. So today, I think my job was through the CEO, and I met him just a few months back when I mentioned to him, why can't CAM take this initiative of developing handloom as one of their initiatives to create job under the Kenya Kwanza, which the government says they want to build millions of jobs. And this could be one thing which can make a difference. So to me, my thought was to link the right people, help in scaling, and also assist the various counties to understand the concept. The first delegation I took to Toshika was the governor of Busia. And he was also intrigued like me to see this. He actually held the cocoon in his hand. He also ate the cocoon. As I was saying, I also tried. And he actually saw the fabric, and the first thing he did was bought one and wore it himself and said, wow, this looks good. So my job was today to give what can be done. And to me, I think we have a market, as said by the CEO. The market is mostly in Europe, Japan, and also US. And we see that to scale this opportunity, where you can only have possibly 10,000 cocoons, which can only give 15 kgs of yarn. And to spin 3 kg of yarn, it takes a month. And just imagine if we need a multiplier of 100,000 of that. What we need is not 6 kg, we need 600,000 kgs, which can then become a scale for export into the markets like US, Europe, Japan. And that is most key to what we can do with very basic, very, very basic, by setting up those COPE centers in each county, which can then go and actually engage and build capacity of women or each house to come out with something called eri silk or cotton. You can do a blend, as mentioned by Lucy, because certain counties have cotton, so they can start from cotton, or if they don't, they can do eri silk, which is a blendable fabric and it is something which is breathable. So it's a natural fiber, it's biodegradable, and it can be blended. So the good thing is, if one county adopts with a center, which is in each ward, of minimum 5 to 7 handlooms, it can cater 3,000 jobs straight away in each household. And if one ward, and you can imagine how many wards you can have in a county, it can straight away impact in each county by at least 25 to 30,000 women, and not just impact by creating jobs, by bringing food on the table, having food security, and counties which are having challenges of drought, they can be the developers because they don't need a lot of water in this. Castor, if I'm right, Lucy, doesn't take a lot of water. So that is something can also go to those counties which are having challenges of food security. You don't have to grow food, you can have money to buy food as well. So that is equally good to go into something similar which can be provided with a small investment. And now we are talking of a center of each ward, which just basically requires anything from 5 to 7 million shillings to set a center. So my engagement with one of the county governors, which has been ongoing and is very keen, is to see, can we bring commercial sense into this business by having cotton in the county and then setting a center and let likes of Lucy to come and buy that, because she is committed to buy 100% with her existing buyers, and I'm sure other buyers will come knowing that there is an opportunity available. So with this, I think small remarks, I would like to now suggest to the very nice audience opportunities where we prevail in creating value for women. And I've seen just the PS Corp just walked in. Cooperatives which can be developed in these counties could be huge. And by saying that, each county can create 30,000 jobs in this space of Erisilk, create anything between 3,000 to 4,000 cooperatives of 100 women, and can impact by creating export-oriented businesses, which I think one of the pillars which was mentioned in the earlier presentation, bring in foreign exchange or hard currency, which is equally needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajiv. And you've heard for yourself, so that the opportunities are there. The difference between what CAM does and many other forums that you will go to is that we bring people who do actual stuff. So it's not theory, it is not philosophy, and I'm not saying theory is bad, philosophy is bad, but you say people who actually do things. Now, allow me to invite the PS, our PS for the State Department of MSME, Madam Susan Mangeni, to give her remarks, and also invite, because we were talking about gender, we had Godfrey Kaituko PS to crown that, and then we can break for lunch. Madam Susan. And let me disclose that the PS, I reached her to her on Saturday, and I said, you must come for this event. So we really appreciate, Madam PS.
Thank you so much, the CEO for Kenya Association of Manufacturers, our very good friend who just left the floor, and whom I'll be looking up to sit down and see, map out these opportunities in our counties, beginning today. We've been advised to pick contacts. I think I'll pick your contacts, and I'll pick also everybody's contact. I came in when we had a panel. Much as I did not, I wasn't here when they were beginning, but I think I could follow through. So I just want to thank the panel. Yeah, and say my name is Susan Nauma Mangeni. I love my name, so I keep on introducing myself. No offense. I'm the PS for MSME, that's micro, small, and medium enterprises development. It's a new State Department. I never forget about saying that. And yeah, so we exist to support the private sector. Actually, my work, 99% of my work, is to see to it that private sector is doing well and it's growing and is making profits. Yeah, so when I received this invitation, I was aware. I just arrived. I arrived today in the morning, back in the country, but because of me liking this sector, and I made a promise that any given time, whenever I have a moment and you're having this conversation, I will always make time for you, because I want us to work together. I want us to align accordingly, read from the same script, and get to act together. And that's why the panel was saying, I'm not government. Oh, you don't need to be government. Government is people, right? And government is here. And this government, by the sheer fact that His Excellency the President William Samuel Ruto thought it wise to have this State Department dedicated to MSME, in other words, to private sector development. He was creating a coordination platform where we can sit together and develop those policies that they were asking about. Register my venting today a little bit about what is being visited upon the SME sector from the so-called Mandamano. Today in the morning, we've been woken up with very sad stories of matatus being banned. This is MSME. And I don't think it's right. And I think it has to stop. We are presiding over a sector that has really suffered. It's trying to recover from the shocks caused by the pandemic, from the shocks caused by the disruption in the global supply chain. We are trying to revive a sector that has been heavily indebted. Most of the players finding themselves in CRB, being unable to borrow loans, being listed negatively. We are trying to revive a sector that is only hope that we have to create more jobs. So we cannot continue sitting and watching, this sector being brought down now to ashes. It is wrong, and I want to call upon the organizers and whoever is getting excited about this, that all these people in MSME that are Kenyans, they have also their democratic rights, they have also civic responsibilities, and I want to believe if they're 18 years and above, they also went to vote, and they voted for the either side. They never made a mistake to do that. But now, after everything is over, if we keep on cheering, organizing forums where most of businesses are being destroyed, where are we headed? Where are we headed to? So I want to condemn and say any leader from whichever side of the political divide who is presiding over such kind of forums that causes violence, anarchy, and destruction of businesses, of MSMEs, should actually be condemned. And we should not allow this to happen. You can imagine those matatus, honestly. Look at the owner. Maybe he has not even finished paying the loan. Where is he going to go? Insurance cannot pay. What is his mistake? What is her mistake? Look at those people who are employed in those matatus, the touts, the drivers, who earn their living from that. So what I'm trying to say today is that any leader who has the interest of Kenyans at heart, for whichever reason, should not entertain such mayhem, such anarchy, destruction be visited upon businesses of Kenyans. And we in the MSME sector, we condemn that. and we say we are Kenyans, and we will not actually also entertain people saying that, oh, MSME can organize them. So no. Let's respect the law. We look across the world, we are seeing, for example, in Paris, there are demonstrations, but they never touch on people's property. In Europe, other countries, there are demonstrations, but they never touch on people's property. Let's not hurt Kenyans who already hurt. I speak as PS for MSME, and I want to say this should stop. We should stop destroying people's businesses. It's not in the right taste. Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry for having stolen part of your time. But I want to say this, that I also decided to come to celebrate women and to celebrate gender. And also to remind you that gender is not only women. And that the letter was clear, the letter of invitation is very clear, is about gender. But somewhere in the text is about women. And I agree with him that women has always been in the business. They do a lot. Unfortunately, it's unpaid business. Women have been doing a lot. And as far as textile and garment industry is concerned, I think most people who do a lot of work there are women. Our Lady Lucy, you talked about handmade clothes. Today in the morning as I was dressing up, my niece was telling me of a new concept, that there is old money and there is new money. So she says that old money loves handmade garments. Are you seeing that? They love fashion, very unique, which is handmade, old money. So I asked her, what is this old money? You know, not old men are people who inherited wealth, people, the dynasty, those who put on. So if those women, they just need a little bit of skilling and retailing for them to make very quality handmade garments. Were we not told here that the late former AG, the Kabete Shah, used to call him the Duke of, never used to put on, he used to do, yeah, are you seeing that? Yeah, so there is a huge opportunity there also for us doing it. There's also, and then she talked about new money. So I said, what is this new money? The people who are now becoming millionaires, the hustlers, those have new money. The old money, I think my friends here have old money. People who have been in this industry for long. So then I just want to also reiterate the government support towards the manufacturing sector. We are still committed to seeing into it that we enable this, we grow this sector. Of course, we are still appalled by the fact that from the years 2016 up to 2020, the sector declined from 9.3% to 7.6%. And this, of course, like Lucy alluded to, was because of the cost of production. And if you look at textile and garment, this is one sector that declined due to that. Why? We had to turn to Asian countries to start importing raw materials, cottons and so on. I see now we are talking about silk farming. Yeah, it's good, but if I see those worms wobbling around, I'm not the best of the people who can promote it, but I think it's one. However, in cotton, the government appreciates the cost of production, and that's why it has placed some sort of renewed focus, emphasizing on the provision of BT cotton, and also, not just that, but trying to see how do we now mobilize farmers? How do we crowdsource farmers into cotton farming? I know there are also plans about irrigation, because BT cotton, one of the challenges it has is very susceptible to droughts. And I think that's when now alternatives like the silk worming now comes into force. So for areas with the high growth potential of cotton, there's a lot of strategy from our end. One, from my own state department, my work is now to entice farmers to go back to cotton farming. How am I doing that? Like you alluded to, we mobilize them, we organize them into cooperatives, into circles, give them financing, ensure that they get access to the right seeds, which is BT cotton. But again, even as we do this, we have to promise them that there is a market. I think there is also government's effort in terms of reviving ginneries. One of the ginnery which is being revived is Luanda Ginnery in Busia County, where I also happen to come from. They're also reviving several others. We've also seen Rivertex coming up as a demonstration that we have a market potential. So we will continue doing that. But as I said, if we work from a market perspective, then it becomes so easy to mobilize farmers and then encourage them that this is where opportunity lies. I think I agree with you, with Lucy, that because of the low income, low revenue that our farmers were getting from cotton, many people quitted. People from Western Kenya, where cotton has been their main source of, main cash crop, quitted because of, partly of course, the mismanagement in the cooperative governance issues, but also because of the low income that was coming out of it. And I think people decided to invest more in other high value crops. And people thought, let's invest in maize. At least maize I will eat. Even if I don't get a market, I'll eat. So we try to look at countries like Bangladesh. We look at countries which are doing well, like Turkey, for example. Bangladesh is doing well when it comes to mass production. I mean, garments for, generating garments for the masses, while Turkey is doing well when it comes to fashion, you know. But you see, Bangladesh is doing that because I think on the end also they have invested a lot in food crops. So on one side, you're pushing, for example, cotton as a cash crop, but also you are self-sufficient when it comes to food supply. So those are some of the strategies that can encourage, because you're not going to tell a mom, you go to the shamba, do cotton, and you know, forget about maize, or you sell your cotton. So you see how can we intercrop these two crops. So I would say there's quite a lot of work happening right now, because textile and garments is one of our priority value chain as a government. And all of us are looking at it from the production, value addition, to upstream, up to the market. And the reason why we engage with you people is the upstream, because you are the off-takers. Now, in the value addition, my state department, we also looking at investing in common user facilities that can promote, for example, cottage industry. These mamas can come together and have like a yarning, you know, machine, you know, in a group, be it 10, 20, and you buy for them a yarning machine somewhere, you know, or you buy for them, let's say, like those tailoring machines, you know. So we are looking at that. We also have an agency called the Kenya Industrial Estates, which finances MSME in the manufacturing sector. So if you're a woman and you're in the manufacturing sector, that's one of the opportunity which you have in terms of financing. And of course, we have our very own now Hustler Fund, okay? So Hustler Fund, we're looking at the next product, which will be targeting groups, again, and individual enterprises. When we launched the first product, which has so far done so well, many women told us, we need something that we can borrow as a group. As you know, women there at the grassroots level, they are kind of tend to influence each other as peer. They like chamas, you know, and if you want a woman to buy something in her house, she must have gone to a neighbor's house, seen what is in that house, and come and pile pressure on you and say, hey, ule amefanya hivyo. So because of that, we have designed a second product, which most of the, we are actually targeting women, because that's the kind of arrangement that they want, and they can borrow up to 1 million. I'm sure, Lucy, with your women who are helping you in castor oil, if they're well put, organized around groups and the chamas, we can see how to support them to access financing that can enable them increase probably the production and the output and even value addition. So we have those opportunities coming up. And the beauty of this is that you're not asking for collateral, and it's a digital loan. You know, they can, it's their phone, their phones, their telephone numbers, and what they want to do. And I'm sure by that time we'll have worked out. We mapped out opportunities. We know what is in there, what they need. We know how to score them credit-wise, and they can access financing, because we all know it's actually financing that has been the greatest barrier for women participation. I want also to say that the county governments, also working closely with the national government, is now setting up industrial parks. And the unique thing about these industrial parks is that they're being informed by the value chain, the unique value chains in those particular counties. So even as we negotiate, we do this conversation, and I think it's a project that will be realized beginning next financial year, which is just probably 2 months to come. So if you are like in Makueni County, in Machakos, just make sure that that particular value chain is also captured as a key value chain in that particular county. Because that's, again, how we are going also to crowdsource investors, informed by what opportunities exist in that particular county. So it's a cost-sharing initiative where the county government are putting in 100 million, and the national government is also matching up to see how we can create, again, market and manufacturing opportunities in each and every corner of this country. So all 47 counties, beginning next financial year, are going to have industrial parks. This is also an opportunity that is aimed at promoting the growth of the manufacturing sector. But other than that, talk about capacity building. I found here the panel, and I agree with the observation that the kind of capacity building which you've been seeing is not the right capacity building. First of all, is not tailored to the opportunities that are existing. Sometimes does not even get to appreciate the skills gap, the knowledge gaps, the networking gaps that our MSMEs are facing. So most of it has tended to be pre-disbursement. Like, for example, in the financial sector, pre-disbursement capacity building. You have applied for loan, and I want to give you money. What will I do? Come, I train you on the basic financials. But you know, that one will not influence how I invest, how I run my business. On that capacity building, I like saying this and giving this analogy. Think about, for parents who are here, think about what we are usually told, that the child mortality rate is high between age 0 to 5 years. Indio. Equally, business people tell us that most businesses die at what age? In under 5 years. Some do not even survive to make it to 1 year or to 2 years. But how do we mitigate the child mortality? We mitigate child mortality by visiting the pediatrician, by doing vaccination, by doing immunization, sindio, constantly, and by also prescribing the right nutrition. It's the same as business. When you begin a business, you need to go through capacity building. It's not a one-day event, and you say, we've trained. No. It's working with this business person from the very beginning to the end, from production, across all the value chains, up to the market, and even beyond to the sustainability. So I want to say that we need to refocus. We need to re-engineer our capacity building programs and treat them the way we do treat babies, and make sure they survive through the 5-year, threat. So I want to say that as a government, we are going to work together with you, the private sector, on the areas of enabling access to financing, areas of enabling access to markets. And for us to do this, I told the CEO, remember? We need to sit down and map out market opportunities across the key value chains that the government has highlighted, textile being one of them, leather value chain, dairy value chain, rice value chain, tea, coffee, building and construction, and see what opportunities exist there. Already, everybody keeps edible oil also included, and I've heard about the castor oil. But already people are asking us, where is the market? When I tell the farmer now, you need to look at, for example, sesame, and say, just tell me where the market is. I'll be happy here to connect that market to that particular farmer. So we are planning before the end of this month, KM, this will be our forum. We need to have a series of meetings in the next 2 weeks, map out opportunities, and we want to do a forum that will connect the local manufacturers to the producers who are farmers downstream. And I think my state department, with my friend here, who is labor, because I'm also creating jobs, we can sit down and build that forum. And if possible, we'll want also to see if we can get the leadership of this country to attend. And they also witness an MOU between you, making commitments that you who has come across the market, for example, edible oil, the market in dairy, the market where you commit to connect that market to our farmers down there. And our work will be ensuring that they meet the right standards, they meet the right quality that is needed in the market. So finally, I want to say that, again on women, and we keep on celebrating women. Like 2 months ago, we did groundbreaking for affordable housing in Majengo, Isili. Then 2 things happened. The first one was us witnessing the signing of an agreement between the women fundis in construction industry with the contractor, where now the contractor committed to give more than 60% of jobs, the interior design, the flooring, to women fundis. So, but again, if they were not organized, nobody will know they exist, isn't it? So like, I think the secret is just organizing them, because individually, there's nothing much we can do. But if we are organized into cooperative, into an association, into a company, then we gain the bargaining power to access the market and also to access the financing. The other thing that happened also was also an agreement between the contractor and the Juakali, the artisan, to supply the doors and the windows. Juakalis of Kamkunji, Juakalis of, Ngong roads there. So what I'm saying is that these value chains offers opportunity for everybody in the society, but above all for the members of the society that for a long time had been locked out. And we can do this through cooperatives by aggregating them into formidable organizations, And for us in the financing sector, we will give them the financing that is required. For you in the market, we will work with you to create those necessary market linkages. And for those people in the capacity building space, we will make sure that you look at capacity building as a product that can stand the test of time, a product that can meet the skills gap, the knowledge gaps, and it's not just a question of knowledge and exchange and transfer. It's also about networking. For example, women require networking. How to know even that an opportunity exists can sometimes become a nightmare. And then digitalization. Most of these opportunities, nowadays people communicate online. But when our women don't even have a smart or an enabled phone to do that, they get locked out. And so these are some of the initiatives that all of us can think about it if at all we want to revitalize the manufacturing sector and get as many women as we can. Lastly, there is an investor who approached me recently from Italy. They have an EPZ, but he was saying textile. I say for this EPZ, this time round, he's thinking on how he can get a locally owned EPZ. You know, most of these EPZs, they're owned by foreigners, isn't it? The fashion. So women just go there, and it's usually a line production. If you're doing hand, you're only doing hand. If you're doing, your trouser is only, you may never even get to know how to do a whole piece because of the line production. But me, I think it's never about the efficiency in production. Me, I think they're also protecting their brand. Sinukweli. They don't want those women to know, because if they knew, I'll give them money, and tomorrow they'll have their own shops of making those things. Sinukweli. But now he was saying he wants to set up a company for women to own. Like, he has been appalled at the number of women who wake up every morning to go to, for example, if we said Ruaraka, to go to Uko Kitengela at the river. But then they've worked in that industry for long, but they own nothing. Aside from what they are paid. Some do not even have skills to do the whole garment, So he was saying, through this initiative, those women, when they think of retiring, they can also have shares in that company. So that is good. So I said, fine. So next week they are coming. We are going to sit down together. Again, Lucy, another opportunity for you there. I don't know, you call them angels or whatever. They are angel investors. So these opportunities, we come across them. But the central thing, like for this guy, which really caught my mind, was like seeing how local women can also be shareholders in that company. So if they're sending to, to Louis Vuitton, but they also shareholders, so they'll earn more from it. And I think that's good. So having said that, allow me to just keep on appreciating the work that women are doing, and to let you know that we know. And for us as a sector, for us as a State Department, a lot of our efforts are at the grassroots, and majority of people who are at the grassroots happens to be women, and you're going to invest much in mobilizing them, organizing them in formidable entities, making sure they're exposed to capacity, the right capacity that they need. We see how we can digitalize them. We see how they can work from their bedroom. Like how childbearing cannot be an obstacle. How to, meander against all those obstacles, and, bring them to the economy, enhance their livelihood, na tujenge taifa pamoja sawa. Thank you so much. And now it is my honor and privilege to invite my colleague PS for labor, a PS Kaituku. Him, he has a speech. Mimi nilikuwa nazindikisha tu yeye. Sawa. Karibu ndugu yangu.
Thank you very much.
Karibu sana Bwana PS. We were really looking forward to have you in the room. Now the floor is yours.
Asante sana. Thank you very much. I want to thank my sister and colleague PS, Susan Auma Mangeni, for the warm welcome. I know I am the one standing between you and your break, whether it is lunch break or tea break. I am not going to speak for long. First, I bring the greetings and apologies of my Cabinet Secretary, the Honorable Florence Bore. She's the one who was supposed to be here with you. But she requested me, because of the seriousness with which she considers KM, she did ask me to come here and stand in for her. So I thank you very much for accepting that I can represent my Cabinet Secretary, the Honorable Florence Bore. Now I begin. Maybe I should say my name's like Auma. My name is Geoffrey Eyanai Kaituko, popularly known as Geoffrey Kaituko, because the other name is difficult for most Kenyans. Rajan Shah, who is the chairman, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Anthony Mwangi, the CEO, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Representatives from various private sector organizations, representatives from governments, members of the fourth estate, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. It is an honor to join you this afternoon for this event, whose theme is promoting gender equality, opportunity, and women workers' welfare in Kenya's textile and apparel sector. This event is indeed timely, as it comes immediately after the Labor Day celebrations of yesterday, and we are glad to have this conversation with the industry, led by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, KM, and IDH. The State Department for Labor and Skills Development has the mandate of 1, promoting harmonious industrial relations, 2, safety and health at workplaces, 3, employment promotion, 4, industrial training, 5, productivity management, 6, national human resource planning and development, 7, registration and regulation of trade unions. This mandate resonates with the theme of this forum and is indeed supportive of the work of both KM and ADH. Kenya has ambitious plans to create a globally competitive and adaptive workforce capable of delivering the country's goal of rapid industrialization as envisioned in Kenya's Vision 2030. This is only possible if human resources play an active role in building our nation by converting other resources such as money, machines, technical know-how, and materials into finished products and services. The manufacturing sector is well positioned to support these ambitious plans. More so, it is a guaranteed provider of, of productive, sustainable jobs, what you're calling here better jobs. The sector has demonstrated herein has the ability to create new jobs as well as grow existing ones through forward and backward linkages to feed other sectors of the economy. Further, the growth of productive jobs by manufacturing means that many people will be able to support their dependents and live quality lives with access to basic amenities such as healthcare, education, water, and food. Manufacturing is indeed a major entry point and vehicle for decent jobs and can contribute significantly to growth of the formal sector in this country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we acknowledge that there is an increasing and significant demand for skilled workers in industries in Kenya, and also a demand for improved quality of goods and services that meet international investor standards. Globally, quality skills development has been directly linked to youth, employment, and sustainable economic development. If anything, relevant skills, competencies, and access to jobs can help accelerate the progress on the SDGs, that is Sustainable Development Goals, resulting in economic empowerment for all. Industry remains a big contributor for job creation, which is a major driver. Thank you very much for the glass of water. Asante. Industry remains a big contributor for job creation, which is a major driver for economic development and the realization of Kenya Vision 2030 and the government skills transformation agenda. On its part, the government is both an actor and a facilitator of skilling, upskilling, and reskilling, prerequisites for the creation of a productive workforce. One policy which the government has put in place towards this is the recognition of prior learning, RPL policy. Through this policy, employees who have acquired skills, but not necessarily through a formal environment, have an opportunity to have those skills certified through the National Industrial Training Authority, NITA, which is under the State Department for Labor and Skills Development. Employees who wish to acquire sector-specific skills can do so through NITA, which is doing a lot in equipping entrants into the labor market to be dynamic and adaptive in a fast-evolving labor market. I wish to take this opportunity to encourage all employees to continually upgrade their skills to improve their employability. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to state that the role of government is to create an environment that is attractive for starting and sustaining businesses so that private entrepreneurs, including manufacturers, can thrive and create jobs. Successful industrialization can increase productivity and unleash more dynamic sectors in Kenya that can create and sustain jobs, hence raising the labor force participation rates. Some industrialization policies that show good promise in Kenya are skills transformation, agriculture-driven transformation, local content and local participation, modernization of the services sector, export-oriented manufacturing, and enhancement of infrastructure. It is for this reason that the President continues to announce initiatives to increase investments into the country. This includes the ASLA Fund initiative, which has solved the challenges related to the high interest rates charged by financial institutions such as banks. The fund offers interest rates as low as 8% with no collateral required as proposed by the current regime. In addition to providing personal finance, the fund also offers micro SME and startup loans. According to Kenya's Micro and Small Enterprises MSMEs policy of 2020, which I believe my sister will be updating soon, the MSME sector accounts for 24% of GDP, over 90% of private sector enterprises, and 93% of total labor force in the economy. Other interventions included supporting manufacturing through purchase of locally manufactured products. Towards this, a list of products which the government must procure from the local market was developed and is currently being used by all ministries, departments, and agencies in their procurement. Finally, let me assure you of the continued support of the State Department for Labor and Skills Development and the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection in general to manufacturers in promoting harmonious relations and the economic progress of the sector. I wish to once again implore your members to keep alive to the call for decent work, social protection, employment promotion, and to pursue any dispute resolution through the rule of law and social dialogue. That's the end of my written speech. And I want to speak off the cuff, and I'm going to say three things. Number one, in line with the theme of today's forum. Number one is that we are a government that listens. Last week, I received a letter from my counterpart, the PS for Investments. I think there was a team that went to petition him in connection with what was going to happen yesterday on Labor Day. You know, normally in this country, there's been a routine or a practice that every year there will be a minimum wage increment. So my colleague, Abubakar Hassan, PS Abubakar Hassan, wrote to me that his clients, who happen to be manufacturers, particularly those in the textile industry, who are concerned with the likely announcement that was going to come through yesterday in the form of an increment in the minimum wage. We also did our technical evaluation as a ministry, and we agreed with your observation. And so you know what happened yesterday. Your views were heard by the president, and so there wasn't any increase. Simutupigia makofi kwa hiyo. Because you told us very well that if you increase labor costs, we are going to close. And we don't want you to close. We want you to continue sustaining the Kenyans who are working for you. And we also want those who want to expand their businesses to be able to pay their employees. So, we are a government that listens, Bwana CEO. And we heard you very loudly, and we therefore were able to persuade the president that for this year, let us not have a minimum wage increment. Maybe next year, but we'll discuss that. Secondly, we also were able to have a conversation with the president on two very important conventions that speak to the subject of today. Convention C-189 on decent work for domestic workers of 2011, and Convention C-190 of C-190 is elimination of violence and harassment in the place of work. I'm sure most of you are aware of it. Kenya is yet to ratify the two conventions. And out of our engagement with His Excellency the President, based on what employers and employees have been telling us, we've been successful in the sense that this process is going to begin in earnest of ratification of those two conventions, and that will be led by His Excellency the Deputy President, the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, so that Kenya joins the nations of the world that have ratified Convention C-189 and Convention C-190. And most of the people who are affected by violence and harassment, you will agree with me, are female workers. Isn't that true? So once we ratify C-190 and C-189, because a majority of domestic workers are also female, we will have made a lot of progress in terms of ensuring that our workplaces are safe and secure. The third thing I want to say is that we are in the process of reviewing the 5 labor laws which Kenya enacted in the year 2007. And therefore, we'll be inviting your views as employers and also as employees, for those of you who are employees, so that we review the labor laws to reflect what is obtaining today in the workplace. 2007 is such a long time ago that there have been a lot of changes. There are new dynamics in play. And therefore, we'll be looking forward to Kenya Association of Manufacturers and its members we'll want to engage with you as we review our 5 labor laws. We recognize the importance of manufacturing in creation of employment, sustainable employment in this country. And therefore, we will not want to create any laws or policies that will undermine manufacturing and any other sector where Kenyans are employed in large numbers. With those many remarks, I want really to thank you for listening and to also wish you very fruitful deliberations if you are coming back after lunch. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana, Bwana PS. Tumpatie makofi ya kilo jamani. Now, with all said and done in the morning session, I think now I will give some few minutes to our CEO, maybe to tell us something before we break for lunch. And just to assure you that in the afternoon it's going to be interesting because we're having interesting topics and the panelists are already here. I can see Mr. Richard Fernandez, the chair, Flower Council of Kenya. He's been here since morning and we are looking forward to a great conversation in the afternoon. So, Bwana CEO, maneno mawili, then we break for lunch.
Asante sana. I think and thank you, Bwana PS, for those listening to us. Indeed, we made the appeal to the PS in charge of industry, PS in charge of investment, because the businesses have been going through a rough patch. And we said, if you can give dispensation, perhaps it will help us to keep those jobs. And you did that, and we want to thank you. And please pass on our appreciation to His Excellency the President for listening to us as well. So I think with those, we have a great afternoon show. As you have heard, we will learn from what the Flower Council has done. And we're joined by none other than Mr. Fernandez, who is the chair of Flower Council. So please come back at 2 and listen to what the Flower Council has done. So thank you very much and enjoy your meal, your lunch.
Asante sana, Bwana CEO. And on that note, we are free to leave briefly. We have around 1 hour, but we might be forced to cut it short because of time so that we can come in early and finish early. In the afternoon, you'll be with my colleague Caroline Ngumba, who will take you through the next session of the panelists. I've been your moderator, Mwana Hamisi Hamadi. Please join me later in the evening, Citizen Nipashe, Citizen TV, as I bring to you the 7 o'clock news. I know we are here, we don't know what's happening outside, but I'll be there to make sure that you get all of it. Asanteni sana, and feel free, feel welcomed.